Chapter 2389. A sword. At this time, everyone saw the item that Tang Ao had taken out. This was an ordinary, shining golden sword. Normally speaking, it was rare for sword-type immortal weapons to be golden. Generally speaking, golden spiritual materials weren't very strong and tough. Therefore, when everyone saw Tang Ao take out this shining golden sword, they were very puzzled. They didn't know what was so special about this sword that Tang Ao had taken out. Han Shan waved his hand, and the golden sword on the appraisal platform landed in his hand. Han Shan suddenly swung the golden sword. Everyone was shocked to see that a huge crack appeared in the space in front of them. Even the pitch-black void was revealed. But as the sword energy dissipated, the surrounding space also began to slowly heal, finally returning to its original state. But Han Shan's sword just now was imprinted in everyone's hearts. Many martial artists who used swords as weapons stared at this sword with fiery eyes. But after Han Shan swung the sword, he didn't move again. He just held the sword and frowned in thought. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, a crack suddenly appeared between Han Shan's eyebrows. Immediately, everyone saw that there was a vertical pupil between Han Shan's eyebrows. After using the vertical pupil to observe for a moment, Han Shan laughed loudly and said, "Wonderful, wonderful." This sword was actually forged with pure gold sand as the main material. Pure gold sand? Impossible. Shouldn't a weapon forged with pure gold sand have a burning aura and be completely pure gold? After Han Shan finished speaking, everyone whispered to each other. But Han Shan didn't care at all. Instead, he said rather proudly, "Normally, an immortal weapon forged with pure gold sand would indeed be completely pure gold and surrounded by a burning aura. But during the forging process of this golden sword, we used the ice purification technique to completely harmonize the hot aura of the pure gold sand, making it even more tough and strong. At the same time, because it used the ice purification technique, what we see is a golden sword and not a pure gold sword." Han Shan, when did you secretly learn artifact forging? While Han Shan was speaking with fervor and assurance, an old man wearing a black robe had arrived at some point in time. This old man wore a black robe, but his hair was scarlet red. After the old man arrived, everyone even felt that the temperature in the appraisal room had risen a little. As the old man approached, the people closest to the old man even felt the celestial spiritual energy in their bodies burning. Martial Uncle Yin Xiao. Su Lin felt helpless in his heart. He was only here to appraise treasures. As a result, his master and martial uncle, whom he usually didn't get to see, were all attracted here. Yin Xiao nodded, then took the golden sword and began to examine it. After watching for a while, Yin Xiao also laughed a few times. "This sword is interesting. I wonder how much pure gold sand this blacksmith wasted in order to forge this sword," Yin Xiao said indifferently as he examined the golden sword. Hearing Yin Xiao's words, Tang Ao secretly sighed in his heart. This old man indeed had some skills, because in order to forge this golden sword, Tang Ao had used a total of 1,500 kilograms of pure gold sand to forge 2 swords. He had also used the leftover materials to forge a long spear and a large saber. Chapter 2390. Perhaps it was because he had used the ice washing technique, but the material had a transparent azure color. Tang Ao had used this material to refine the only grade 4 spiritual weapon. After that, Tang Ao had refined it 5 more times using the spiritual refinement technique. Therefore, the power of this sword was no weaker than a grade 9 immortal weapon. On this day, the people from the Dao Seeking Academy walked out of the treasure appraisal room of the Chamber of Immortal Ruins. When they returned to the VIP room, they still felt dizzy. The golden sword that Tang Ao had taken out was priced at a whopping 100 million low-grade immortal crystals by Yin Xiao. This price made people think of the scene of immortal crystals piling up like a mountain. After the golden sword, Tang Ao had also taken out a golden saber and a golden spear. The golden saber was priced at 80 million immortal crystals, while the golden spear was priced at 70 million immortal crystals. However, this was only the lowest price. In other words, as long as Tang Ao's treasures didn't go unauctioned, they might even fetch a higher price. Although the ruins of Immortal was quite far from the Langya realm, the news of the ruins of Immortal auction still reached the various forces of the Langya realm through various channels. How could anyone sit still after the ruins of Immortal auction with so many good items? Under the pressure of various forces, the void worship from the Langya realm to the ruins of Immortal, which was supposed to take place once every 1,000 years, had to leave for the ruins of Immortal ahead of schedule. The ruins of Immortal auction, which was supposed to be held the next day, was also delayed by a month. During this month, martialists from the Langya realm weren't the only ones who came over. Experts from the surrounding ruins of Immortal had also crossed the void realm to come over. To a large extent, the purpose of these people's visit was the last 3 items that Tang Ao had. Tang Ao wasn't the only person who knew that the pure gold sand could be refined using the ice washing technique. In fact, Tang Ao wasn't the first person to succeed. Before Tang Ao, there was already an armament refiner who did this. Many blacksmiths had even tried, but no matter how skilled they were, they realized that the success rate of using the ice washing technique to purify the pure gold sand was too low. Furthermore, if the cold air lingered on the pure gold sand, it could easily cause the pure gold sand to explode after the cold air corroded it. Therefore, although some blacksmiths had successfully refined such immortal weapons in the past 10,000 years, they had mostly used daggers and flying sabers. The reason was that it was too difficult to use the ice washing technique to purify the pure gold sand. It was basically impossible to obtain a large amount of pure gold sand. However, the appearance of the 3 immortal weapons made from the pure gold sand had caused an uproar in the eastern region of the entire Langya realm. Among the people who boarded the Starry Sky battleship heading to the ruins of immortality, there were craftsmen who were rarely seen. But now there were a lot of them. Clearly, everyone wanted to see for themselves if there was really someone who used the ice purification technique to obtain a large amount of purified pure gold sand. After a month of preparation, the scale of the ruins of immortality auction was upgraded again. Many treasures were delivered from the Langya realm, and the ruins of immortality auction, which was originally scheduled to be held in the Great Desolation City of the Langya realm's eastern region, was also included in this auction. The great families of the world and the great continent, big families, and had long emperor through the dragons. Chapter 2391. The second and third floors were originally private rooms, but at this moment, the private rooms had been completely dismantled and replaced with comfortable soft chairs. At the moment, there were only a few Yin-Yang realm martial artists from the ruins of immortality sitting on the second floor. The rest of the people were all from the east domain of the Langya realm. To be more precise, they were in the Great Desolate City in the eastern region of Langya realm. The weakest of these people were life and death realm martial artists who had come to watch the show with their elders, and the strongest were even half-step chaotic heaven realm martial artists. On the third floor were the upper echelons of the ruins of immortality auction, as well as the instructors of the Langya realm's Tao Seeking Academy and the Signwood Academy. As for the students from the Tao Seeking Academy and the Greenwood Academy, they were also seated on the second floor. Although Tang Ao was a martialist from the ruins of immortality, Tang Ao was allowed to sit on the third floor because Tang Ao had the black gold identity jade token of the Chamber of Commerce. The third floor of the Immortal Ruins auction was basically filled with half-step chaotic sky realm old monsters. Tang Ao sat there with his astral reaching realm cultivation base, but he didn't feel any pressure. This was because Tang Ao saw that the surrounding chaotic heaven stage old monsters had set up restrictions to isolate themselves from the outside world and were chatting with each other. Tang Ao also wanted to set up a restriction, but Tang Ao knew that if he wanted to isolate himself from the probing of these old monsters, he would have to expose his true strength in the Array Tao. As for those who didn't want to expose their Formation Tao abilities, the restrictions they put on couldn't even think of isolating them from their soul remembrance probing. Therefore, Tang Ao just sat there calmly, waiting for the auction to begin. There were 7 grades of identity jade plates in the ruins of Immortality Auction. They were bronze, silver, gold, gold, black gold, purple diamond, and supreme. With different identity jade tokens, one could receive different treatment in the Chamber of Immortal Ruins. Right now, Tang Ao was merely at the 3rd level of Astral Reaching Realm. However, because Tang Ao had the black gold rank jade tag, Tang Ao was able to sit on the 3rd level. However, the black gold identity jade token was only ranked 3rd in the identity jade token system of the Chamber of Immortal Ruins. Above the black gold identity jade token were the diamond identity jade token and the sovereign identity jade token. However, the Chamber of Immortal Ruins only had a limited number of identity jade cards of these 2 grades. The Supreme Identity Jade token would be used against experts at the Down Master level. The diamond and black gold Identity Jade plates were for celestial turbid stage powerhouses and big clients of the Chamber of Commerce in the ruins of Immortality. Of course, Tang Ao's cultivation base was not high enough, but the treasures Tang Ao had auctioned off had already been listed as a major client of the Chamber of Commerce in the Immortal Ruins. Of course, Tang Ao did not have the qualifications to obtain a black gold rank Identity Jade token. Other than the treasures that Tang Ao had put up for auction, Tang Ao had also revealed his strength as a Tier 3 pill master in front of Yin Xiao and Han Shan. Rather than a display of strength, it would be more accurate to say that it was a display of potential. After Tang Ao had revealed his potential, Yin Xiao and Han Shan had decided to establish a long-term cooperative relationship with Tang Ao after careful consideration. The easiest way to establish a long-term cooperative relationship was to let Tang Ao see that he could get enough benefits from the Chamber of Immortal Ruins. Therefore, the 2 directly asked the headquarters for a black gold rank identity jade token and gave it to Tang Ao. They also told Tang Ao that if the relationship between Tang Ao and the Chamber of Commerce reached a certain level, Tang Ao's black gold identity jade token would be replaced with a purple diamond identity jade token. Then, after Tang Ao went to the Langya realm, the Chamber of Commerce could even provide shelter and the greatest convenience for Tang Ao. Tang Ao could not enjoy these benefits for the time being, but in the near future, when Tang Ao went to the Langya realm, he would immediately be able to experience these benefits. After all, there were countless warriors in the vast Langya realm. However, there were no more than 1,000 warriors who had a black gold rank identity jade token in the Chamber of Commerce. 1,000 people sounded like a lot, but if the ruins of immortality were to be placed in the Langya realm, there would be 1 warrior who had a black gold rank identity jade token in the Chamber of Commerce. It was not hard to imagine how rare a black gold rank identity jade token was in the Chamber of Commerce, and how noble such an identity was. Therefore, even the few half-step sky realm martial artists could only sit on the 2nd floor of the Immortal Ruin auction. However, Tang Ao, with his cultivation base of 3rd level Astral Reaching Realm, was able to sit on the 3rd floor. Because Tang Ao did not use any arrays to hide himself, everyone in the Immortal Ruins auction could see Tang Ao's figure. After seeing Tang Ao, Jinshun, and Sushiro, who were on the 1st floor, as well as the warriors who had bought pills from the September Elixir Pavilion, were very excited. It was as if the person sitting on the 3rd floor was not Tang Ao, but them. As for the people from the Dao Seeking Academy, they had witnessed the whole process of Tang Ao taking out all kinds of treasures. They had no doubt that Tang Ao could sit on the 3rd floor. However, none of them knew that after they left, Tang Ao had revealed his rank 3 Immortal Alchemy Master ability in front of Han Shan and Yin Xiao. A rank 3 Immortal Alchemy Master within 1,000 years was a genius with unlimited potential. Even the Langya realm, or even the Myriadwood realm where the Yao clan was located. Moreover, Tang Ao had not joined any forces yet. Therefore, the Chamber of Commerce was also trying its best to invite Tang Ao to join. Chapter 2392. As long as Tang Ao maintained a favorable impression of the Chamber of Immortal Ruins, Tang Ao might still be able to join the chamber in the future. Even if Tang Ao did not join the Chamber of Immortal Ruins, maintaining a close relationship with the Chamber of Immortal Ruins would still be a very good thing. As for using force to force Tang Ao to join the Chamber of Immortal Ruins, that was almost impossible. The Chamber of Immortal Ruins cherished talents, but would not force others to join. The Chamber of Immortal Ruins wanted to attract talents, not force them to join. As time passed, more and more people arrived at the auction of the Immortal Ruins. Usually, the ruins of Immortal Ruins had the highest number of martialists at such an auction. However, the number of martialists from other realms was now comparable to the number of martialists from the ruins of Immortal Ruins. Some of them came from the surrounding ruins of Immortal, while others came from the great wilderness city in the eastern region of the Langya realm. There were also some martialists with a pair of pointy ears and extraordinarily handsome looks. They did not seem to be from the human tribe, but there were very few of them, and they were all protected by top-notch experts. The first level of the auction was packed, and the second level was also completely filled. Only the third level, where Tang Ao was still empty. There were no more than 20 people on the third level. However, apart from Tang Ao, these people all had very powerful auras. There were as many as 5 half-step chaotic sky realm experts. At the moment, there was a distorted, transparent light in front of these experts on the third level. Through the light screen, one could see the figures inside, but their faces could not be seen clearly. It was impossible to know what the people inside were doing. These were isolation arrays. If Tang Ao wanted to, Tang Ao could also set them up. However, Tang Ao had already exposed his alchemy abilities. If he exposed his array formation abilities as well, he would be courting death. Although Grade 3 immortal alchemy masters within 1,000 years of age were rare, they did exist. However, a Grade 3 immortal alchemy master within 1,000 years of age and a Grade 4 immortal array master was somewhat shocking. In this way, even if others didn't want to look for Tang Ao, they wouldn't be able to. Thus, Tang Ao was extremely conspicuous on the third floor. Other experts might not be able to see him clearly, but when they looked at Tang Ao, they could see him clearly. Bai Luoyu and the rest of the Dao Seeking Academy were seated on the second level. Looking at Tang Ao on the third level, Bai Luoyu felt some regret in his heart. Because Tang Ao had stayed in the ruins of immortality for the past month, even Bai Luoyu had been unable to find Tang Ao. Although Bai Luoyu hadn't been able to find Tang Ao, he had investigated Tang Ao in his South Ruin City. After some investigation, Bai Luoyu found out that Tang Ao was a straightforward martial artist. She had been too impatient that day, coupled with the fact that she came from the Langya world. When she met Tang Ao, although she did not look at him with disdain like Song Dongquan and the others, she still felt a sense of superiority in front of Tang Ao. Furthermore, that incense burner was her father's only relic. She really wanted to know what secret her father had left behind and where he had gone. It was also because of this that she acted rashly. Chapter 2393. Just like Chun Ye, Song Dongquan was an outer court disciple of the Dao Seeking Academy. Song Dongquan was born in the Song clan, an ancient cultivation family, and his elder brother, Song Dongxian, was a genius of the Dao Seeking Academy's inner court. Therefore, Song Dongquan was an existence that almost no one in the outer court dared to offend. Chun Ye and Song Dongquan didn't get along, so she was very happy to see Song Dongquan unhappy. Clang! At this moment, a crisp sound of a bell reverberated throughout the ruins of Immortality Auction. The chaotic auction hall immediately quietened down upon hearing the sound of the bell. A moment later, everyone saw a woman in a fiery red dress walk out from the high platform of the Immortal Ruins auction. The woman was unusually seductive. She wore a fiery red dress that accentuated her curves to an astonishing degree. However, her waist was so slender that it couldn't be hugged. She looked extremely flirtatious with every frown. A woman like her would attract countless gazes no matter where she went. As the woman appeared, the temperature in the auction hall seemed to rise by a few degrees. This is the branch president of the Immortal Ruins auction, Luo Hongying. Upon seeing the woman, Tang Ao immediately recalled that there was such a person in the upper echelons of the Immortal Ruins auction that Su Lin had introduced him to. There are nearly 160 branches in the Immortal Ruins auction. The branch presidents of these branches were in charge of the operations of the Immortal Ruins auction in one or several regions. Luo Hongying was mainly in charge of the operations of the Immortal Ruins auction in the Great Wilderness City and the surrounding cities in the Langya realm. Tang Ao knew that in the past, Luo Hongying would personally host the auction in the Immortal Ruins auction. Therefore, Tang Ao wasn't very surprised to see Luo Hongying. As Tang Ao looked at Luo Hongying, Tang Ao suddenly realized that Luo Hongying was glancing at him, intentionally or unintentionally. That seductive glance made Tang Ao's heart skip a beat. Tang Ao was secretly shocked. Although Tang Ao also liked beauties, he definitely didn't like them to this extent. Tang Ao quickly realized that Luo Hongying was born with a seductive body and cultivated a very special cultivation technique that could, to a certain extent, capture a cultivator's thoughts. Thinking of this, Tang Ao secretly raised his guard. Beautiful women were already very difficult to deal with. Tang Ao was absolutely unwilling to provoke a woman who was beautiful, smart, and had some tricks up her sleeves. Luo Hongying's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise when she saw that Tang Ao was only stunned for a moment before immediately coming to his senses. Tang Ao's guess was correct. Just now, Luo Hongying had used 30% of her charm technique on Tang Ao. Although Tang Ao didn't seem to have much experience, he didn't expect Tang Ao to be able to wake up in a breath's time under such circumstances. It could be seen that Tang Ao was very vigilant, even though he was in a very safe place like the auction of the ruins of immortality. The more Tang Ao behaved this way, the more Luo Hongying found it interesting. Luo Hongying wanted to see how vigilant Tang Ao could be. After Luo Hongying appeared, many people's breathing quickened. They looked at Luo Hongying as if they wanted to swallow her whole. Ha ha ha! Did you guys come to the auction of the ruins of immortality to bid for me? Luo Hongying held a wine cup in her hand. After taking a sip, she smiled coquettishly. Chapter 2394. With that little business of yours, how much can 30% be worth? I'll pay 50%. This time, the speaker was a pale-faced youngster. Although he only had the cultivation base of astral reaching realm, he was also accompanied by a half-step chaotic sky realm expert. This youngster's identity was clearly not simple. Ha! I didn't expect young Master Hua to also be captivated by Lady Luo. Since young Master Hua is interested, how could this old man dare to compete? Seeing that this half-step chaotic sky realm expert seemed to be admitting defeat, the surrounding people curiously looked at the pale-faced youth. Tang Ao took a glance and found it interesting. This pale-faced youth wasn't drunk, but seriously injured. Even at this moment, this youth still drank a few mouthfuls of spirit tea from time to time. This spirit tea clearly contained some special ingredients that could suppress his internal injuries. If not for this spirit tea, this youth's injuries would have already broken out. At the same time, Tang Ao also saw through this youth's cultivation. After seeing through this youth's cultivation, Tang Ao's eyes were filled with shock. This was because this pale-faced youth wasn't at the astral reaching realm, but a half-step chaotic sky realm expert. It was just that his current injuries were too severe, so there was a flaw in his concealment method. Therefore, Tang Ao was able to see through his cultivation. All right, let's end the small talk here. After another chuckle, Luo Hongying put down the wine cup in her hand and said, "Most of my friends should know who I am, but I'd still like to introduce myself to new friends. My name is Luo Hongying, and I'm the person in charge of the Immortal Ruins Chamber of Commerce in the Immortal Ruins. Our Immortal Ruins Chamber of Commerce started out in the Immortal Ruins. Therefore, it's my honor to be able to establish a branch here. Due to the fact that a lot of good things have appeared in the Immortal Ruins and the great competition of the Immortal Ruins that happens once every 100 years, I've decided to combine the Immortal Ruins auction that was originally going to be held in Great Desolate City with this one. I hope that everyone can bring back a treasure that they're satisfied with." After saying that, Luo Hongying's expression changed, and she continued to say, "Without further ado, let's take out the first item for today's auction, the first-grade king purple heart pill." As soon as Luo Hongying's voice fell, two beautiful maids carried a jade plate over. There was a restriction on the jade plate, so it was impossible to see what was on the jade plate. Although Luo Hongying had said that it was a first-grade king tier purple heart pill, this level of purple heart pill was rare, but it was still divided into different levels. Some alchemists could refine first-grade king grade purple heart pills, and when they reached the pinnacle, they could save one person with one pill. And the king grade purple heart pill that some alchemists refined only barely reached the level of a tier 1 king grade medicinal pill. As a result, no one knew what level the purple heart pill was at. However, as Luo Hongying waved her lily-white hand, the restriction on the jade plate immediately dissipated. The moment the restriction dissipated, countless soul psyches instantly shrouded the jade plate from all directions. While everyone was observing the medicinal pills on the jade plate, Luo Hongying said slowly, "This isn't the first time a first-grade king grade purple heart pill is being auctioned in the Immortal Ruins auction. Among the first-grade king grade purple heart pills that I've handled, these 10 medicinal pills rank at least in the top 3. Chapter 2395. 800,000. Wei Xiaoze indifferently opened his mouth. Almost at the same time, Luo Hongying's voice faded. Wei Xiaoze was a half-step chaotic heaven realm cultivator, so these tier 1 immortal pills wouldn't be of much use to him. However, Wei Xiaoze wasn't bidding for this set of purple heart pills for himself. These 10 pills were concocted by Tang Ao himself. When he saw that his pills could be auctioned off at a high price of 800,000 immortal crystals, Tang Ao felt extremely excited. According to Tang Ao's Immortal Ruin Chamber of Commerce's base price, these king-grade purple heart pills were only 100,000 immortal crystals each. But now they had instantly reached 160,000. This set of purple heart pills is not bad. The key is that there are a lot of them. It's worth a try. On the other side of the auction's second floor, a middle-aged man with a goatee whispered a few words and said, 810,000 immortal crystals. After this man made his bid, Wei Xiaoze coldly glanced at the middle-aged martial artist. A moment later, Wei Xiaoze sneered, "I don't want it anymore." Wei Xiaoze's words stunned everyone. From his words just now and his action of raising the price by 200,000 immortal crystals, no matter how one looked at it, this Wei Xiaoze wasn't someone who would give up easily. Why did Wei Xiaoze directly give up after one bid when the auction had just started? Others didn't know the reason, but the middle-aged martial artist who bid for this set of purple heart pills knew. On the third floor of the Immortal Ruin auction, Tang Ao inwardly sighed at Wei Xiaoze's power. There are only 2 sets of purple heart pills. For the first set, Wei Xiaoze raised the price by 200,000 immortal crystals, showing his determination to buy it. And after Wei Xiaoze raised the price by 200,000 immortal crystals, there was still someone bidding, which meant that this person was also very eager for these purple heart pills. Since this was the case, Wei Xiaoze immediately gave up and prepared a bid for the second set. At this moment, there were many people in the auction hall, but not many could see through Wei Xiaoze's thoughts. There were also some who could see through Wei Xiaoze's thoughts, but they didn't dare to gamble. They didn't know what Wei Xiaoze's attitude towards the second set was. Was he determined to get it, or did he have other thoughts? The purple heart pellet had the best healing effect among the first-rank immortal pellets. However, the purple heart pellet was only effective for warriors below the 3rd level of astral reaching realm. After reaching the 3rd level of the astral reaching realm, although the purple heart pellet would still work, it would not be that effective anymore. The purpose of these people bidding for the purple heart pill was not for their own use, but to resell it and earn the difference in price. Some of them were bought for the younger generation. But no matter what the reason was, the purple heart pill, as the first auction item, was still very successful. After this group of purple heart pills was fought over It was bought by a middle-aged martial artist who was on his second winter vacation. Of course, the price was no longer 800,000 low-grade immortal crystals, but 2 million low-grade immortal crystals. Moreover, looking at his posture, even if someone else were to raise the price, he would still be able to compete. However, the effects of the Purple Heart Pill were limited. Not many cultivators who came to participate in the Ruins of Immortality were interested in the Purple Heart Pill. Chapter 2396. 1 million low-grade immortal crystals. Just when everyone thought that Wei Xiaozi was going to give up, he took a sip of spiritual tea and opened his mouth. Wei Xiaozi didn't bid for the first set of Purple Heart Pills not because he couldn't afford it, but because he owed the man with the goatee a favor. Since the man had spoken, Wei Xiaozi naturally wouldn't compete. The price of the second set of Purple Heart Pills was only 700,000 before Wei Xiaozi bid. Wei Xiaozi raised the price by 300,000 immortal crystals, so naturally, no one continued to bid. These people's bids were very casual, but the martial artists of the Ruins of Immortality were shocked. Usually, it was difficult to get hundreds of thousands of immortal crystals, but these people's bids were increasing by tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands. It was as if the precious, immortal crystals were just stones in their eyes. If the following items were all like this, then the Ruins of Immortality auction would have nothing to do with the martial artists of the Ruins of Immortality. Fortunately, the first item of the auction was an above-average item in this auction. After the first item was auctioned, the following treasures also became normal. The second item is 100 seeds of spirit congealing grass. There are a lot of spirit congealing grass in the Langya realm. However, there are no spirit congealing grass in the Ruins of Immortality. There are 3 ways to use spirit congealing grass. The first is to use it to make tea, the second is to use it to refine spirit congealing incense, and the third is to refine spirit congealing pills. These 3 ways are used to calm one's mind and enhance one's perception. The effects of these 3 ways are also increasing in sequence. Since the Chamber of Immortality had taken out the 100 seeds of spirit congealing grass, Luo Hongying's introduction was more detailed. However, Luo Hongying was right. There were no spirit congealing grass in the Ruins of Immortality, but there were many in the Langya realm. Some martial arts families even had people responsible for growing spirit congealing grass. Therefore, many people lost interest when they saw that the second item was spirit congealing grass. However, Tang Ao was somewhat interested in the spirit congealing grass. This was because there was no spirit congealing grass in Tang Ao's first herb garden. Of these 100 seeds, Tang Ao still wanted to bid for a portion. These 100 spirit congealing grass seeds will be divided into 10 groups and auctioned in 10 groups, 2 sets at a time and 5 sets at a time. The seed of the spirit congealing grass was priced at 1,000 immortal crystals, and a stack was priced at 10,000 immortal crystals. You can use the contribution points from the Ruins of Immortality to make up for it. 10,000 contribution points is equivalent to 1,000 immortal crystals. The warriors of the Langya realm had no interest in the spirit congealing grass, but many of the warriors of the immortal ruins wanted it. However, when he heard that a stack of spirit congealing grass would cost 10,000 immortal crystals and that the spirit congealing grass would be auctioned in 2 stacks, it meant that he would not even be qualified to bid if he was short of 20,000 immortal crystals. However, what delighted the cultivators of the Ruins of Immortality was that the spirit condensing grass could be auctioned using contribution points. In the Ruins of Immortality, the least valuable thing was immortal crystals, and the least valuable thing was contribution points. 20,000 immortal crystals were equivalent to about 200,000 contribution points here. To an ordinary martial artist, 200,000 contribution points was not a small amount. However, for those cultivation families that had been rooted in the Ruins of Immortality for several generations, 200,000 contribution points was like a drop in the ocean. 200,000 contribution points. A cultivator immediately called out after Luo Hongying's words. 210,000 contribution points. Before the previous martial artist could finish his bid, someone else immediately made a bid. Chapter 2397. Many people fell silent after seeing Jin Wanchuan's bid. Contribution points were what the martial practitioners of the ruins of immortality lacked the least, but the answer was naturally Jin Wanchuan of the Myriad Treasure Tower. The Myriad Treasure Tower was the property of the 9th generation of the Jin family. Jin Wanchuan had entered the Langya realm before, but for some unknown reason, he returned from the Langya realm and took over the Myriad Treasure Tower. 500,000 contribution points going once. Anyone else? Luo Hongying smiled as she looked around and asked in a friendly manner. 500,000 contribution points going twice. Is no one interested in the first set of spirit congealing grass seeds? Although there are still 8 more sets, it's hard to say what will happen if we add more. Luo Hongying continued when she saw that the crowd was indifferent. 60,000 immortal crystals. This time, the voice came from the second floor. The crowd looked over and saw that the person who made the bid was the city lord of the North Ruined City, Beigongzhu. Moreover, Beigongzhu used immortal crystals instead of contribution points. 1 million contribution points. Jin Wanchuan didn't budge. Based on his foresight and intuition, he knew that he had to get this set of spirit congealing grass seeds. If there was a lower price later on, he would continue to sell it. If the rest were all high prices, he would make a profit. Actually, Beigongzhu didn't really want this set of spirit congealing grass. The reason why he made the bid was to give it a try. What Beigongzhu didn't expect was that Jin Wanchuan would increase the bid by 40,000 immortal crystals. Although Beigongzhu had a lot of immortal crystals, he couldn't spend them casually. Thinking of this, Beigongzhu shook his head and stopped bidding. Beigongzhu didn't want to guess the thoughts of a businessman like Jin Wanchuan, nor could he. Since that was the case, he just had to fight for the remaining 4 sets of spirit congealing grass seeds. Beigongzhu didn't believe that Jin Wanchuan could take all 5 sets of spirit congealing grass seeds by himself. In the end, Jin Wanchuan still won this set of spirit congealing grass seeds with 1 million contribution points. After the first set of spirit congealing grass seeds was auctioned, the price of the second set continued to rise. In the end, when the price rose to 3 million contribution points, everyone was shocked. Even Tang Ao did not expect that the first group of spirit congealing grass seeds did not have many people competing for it, but the second group of spirit congealing grass seeds actually had such a degree of competition. Beigongzhu was secretly impressed by Jin Wanchuan's foresight when he saw how intense the competition for the second group of spirit concentration grass seeds was. At this moment, Beigongzhu understood why Jin Wanchuan kept raising the price for the first batch of spirit congealing grass seeds. In the end, the bidding grew more and more intense until it was won by an expert from the North Ruined City after 5 million contribution points. 5 million contribution points was not a small number. Even if it was exchanged for immortal crystals, it would be 500,000 immortal crystals. Moreover, as long as the martial artists in the ruins of immortality had 10 million contribution points, they would be qualified to leave the ruins of immortality and head to the Langya realm. Although the competition for the third group wasn't as intense as that for the second group, it still rose to 3 million contribution points in a short time. In the end, it was sold for 3 million contribution points. When it came to the fourth group, many people were worried that the price of the fifth group would be even higher, so they all started a bid. In the end, the seeds of the fourth group of spirit congealing grass were also sold at a high price. Chapter 2398. In the end, the fifth seed was won by Jin Wanchuan for 1.8 million contribution points. Many people were speechless when they saw this. Jin Wanchuan had won 2 out of the 5 sets of spirit congealing grass seeds. However, the total contribution points he had spent to bid for 2 sets of spirit congealing grass seeds was less than what others had spent to bid for 1 set of seeds. Originally, Tang Ao had wanted to bid for the last set of spirit congealing grass seeds. However, after seeing Jin Wanchuan bid, Tang Ao did not continue bidding. The auction item this time is a tortoise shell. Even the appraisers of our chamber of immortal ruins don't know what this tortoise shell is. However, we can speculate that this tortoise shell is related to the spiritual refinement technique. If any of you are a blacksmith friend, why don't you buy this tortoise shell and study it when you return? Tang Ao was immediately tempted when he heard that it was related to the spiritual refinement technique. However, it only lasted for a moment before Tang Ao's heart sank. Even in the Langya realm, the spiritual refinement technique wasn't something that could be found everywhere. Among 1,000 weapon refiners, it was already very good if there was almost one person who could grasp the spirit refinement technique. Even if the Chamber of Immortal Ruins were to auction such an item, it wouldn't be placed here. It should have been brought to a larger auction in the Langya realm. Therefore, this tortoise shell was clearly a trap. Moreover, Tang Ao had a vague feeling that this was a trap for him. However, Tang Ao couldn't understand why the Chamber of Immortal Ruins, which seemed to have a good relationship with him, would want to set him up now. At this moment, Tang Ao also felt two obscure soul remembrance entangling him. One of the two psyches belonged to an old man sitting not far from Tang Ao. Although this person had used an array to conceal the surrounding space, Tang Ao could pass through a mere Grade 3 immortal array without leaving a trace. The old man also had a blazing flame aura on his body, and there was even a huge crafting furnace pattern on his clothes. Many people didn't know where the immortal weapons that appeared this time came from, but this old man knew that they were put up for auction by Tang Ao. Therefore, this old man suspected that Tang Ao was not only an alchemist, but also a very powerful weapon refiner. In fact, Tang Ao's refining methods were not the slightest bit inferior to his alchemy skills. Another strand of soul remembrance shrouded the backstage of the auction. This soul remembrance even gave Tang Ao an oppressive feeling. If Tang Ao guessed correctly, the owner of this soul remembrance was likely a true Turbid Heaven stage martial artist, not a half-step Turbid Heaven stage. However, after these two soul remembrance observed for a while, they slowly retracted. The two of them seemed to be somewhat disappointed, because when Tang Ao saw the tortoise shell, he was actually indifferent. Based on the immortal weapons that Tang Ao had put up for auction, the two of them knew that those immortal weapons had been refined not long ago. Moreover, the weapon refiner who had refined those immortal weapons clearly had some special techniques that allowed him to achieve such a high success rate when using the spiritual refinement technique. Either this weapon refiner had some precious treasure on him, or he had mastered some unknown secret technique. Regardless of which one it was very interesting. However, Tang Ao's expression was too calm, as if Tang Ao had no interest in refining weapons at all. This made the two old men somewhat uncertain whether Tang Ao knew how to refine weapons. To be honest, after the two of them found out that Tang Ao was a Grade 3 alchemy master, they didn't think that Tang Ao was also a weapon refiner. This was because both refining pills and refining weapons required a large amount of time and money to accumulate. The ruins of immortality were already lacking in resources. Under such circumstances, it was already very difficult for Tang Ao to become a Grade 3 alchemy master. It was somewhat impossible for him to become a Grade 4 alchemy master at the same time as a Grade 3 alchemy master. Although there were quite a number of weapon refiners in the ruins of immortality, there were still some. However, this tortoise shell clearly didn't belong to them. Anything related to the spiritual refinement technique was considered a good item. The spiritual refinement technique was one of the techniques in refining weapons, but it was also the most mysterious technique in refining weapons. Many weapon refiners could only become Grade 3 or Grade 4 immortal weapon refiners in their lifetime. However, if one mastered the spiritual refinement technique, they could even refine immortal weapons that were comparable to Grade 5, Grade 6, or even stronger. After an intense fight, the tortoise shell ended up in Song Dongquan's hands. Although Song Dongquan had obtained the tortoise shell, he was staring at Chun Ye with gritted teeth. This was because Chun Ye had been raising the price with Song Dongquan while he was bidding for the tortoise shell. Of course, Song Dongquan knew that Chun Ye was deliberately raising the price. In fact, Chunya didn't even want the tortoise shell. However, Song Dongkwon didn't dare to give up because he knew that even if he gave up, Chunya would most likely buy the tortoise shell back. Others might not know what the tortoise shell was, but Song Dongkwon did. Chapter 2399. What Song Dongkwon didn't expect was that when he saw the tortoise shell, Chunya was also there. Therefore, Song Dongkwon spent 3 million immortal crystals to get the tortoise shell, which started at 100,000 immortal crystals. After taking out 3 million immortal crystals, Song Dongkwon almost vomited blood. For Song Dongkwon, 3 million low-grade immortal crystals was nothing. What made Song Dongkwon depressed was that because of Chunya's mischief, he had spent so much money in vain. Song Dongkwon could even imagine that in this auction, as long as there was something he wanted, Chunya would definitely interfere. After the tortoise shell, many other items were auctioned, but until now, Tang Ao hadn't made a move. Finally, under everyone's anticipation, a jade box was carried up. Inside the jade box was a jade bottle, and inside the jade bottle was a ball of dark purple flame that was slowly burning. This ball of flame was naturally the netherworld flame that Tang Ao had put up for auction. Originally, this ball of netherworld flame was going to be taken away by Han Shan. But this time, Luo Hongying had come from Langyu World and brought a better type of flame. Therefore, after giving that flame to Han Shan, the netherworld flame that Tang Ao had put up for auction was released for auction. What kind of flame is this? Seeing the flame quietly burning in the jade bottle, a martial artist immediately asked. Looking at its color and aura, it seems to be the netherworld flame. Moreover, this flame also has a mysterious feeling, but I can't remember what it is. This is the aura of a fire spirit. This ball of netherworld flame is either about to give birth to a fire spirit, or it has been in contact with a fire spirit for a long time. Most of the people who came here had some skills. Very quickly, the information about the netherworld flame was explained. At this time, Luo Hongying also opened her mouth to introduce. Friends are right, this is a first-grade immortal flame, the netherworld flame. There are countless heavenly flames in true martial domain, but there are only a few dozen that can advance. This netherworld flame is a flame with unlimited potential. Moreover, some friends have already noticed that this netherworld flame is contaminated with the aura of a fire spirit. Regardless of where the aura of a fire spirit came from, this netherworld flame has a very high chance of giving birth to a fire spirit in the future. Without further ado, the starting price of this netherworld flame was 30 million immortal crystals, and each increment must not be lower than 100,000 immortal crystals. I believe that many friends have come for the netherworld flame, but there is only one ball of netherworld flame. If everyone wants it, then quickly make your move. What Luo Hongying said was right. A portion of the warriors that came here this time were really here for the netherworld flame. When the netherworld flame appeared, these people thought about it for a moment before starting to bid. 30 million celestial crystals was not a small number, but this kind of flame that could be upgraded and could even evolve into the immortal nether flame was worth this price. 31 million immortal crystals. During the auction of the nether flame, everyone in the ruins of immortality was reduced to spectators. In the ruins of immortality, where resources were scarce, not many people could afford 30 million immortal crystals. Even though the few elders of the ruins of Immortal Elders Council could take out so many immortal crystals, none of them dared to do so, because the celestial crystals in their hands had come from shady sources. 40 million immortal crystals. This Zhao wants this netherworld flame. I hope that everyone can give this Zhao some face. An old voice rang out from a restriction formation on the third floor. Along with this voice was the powerful aura of a half-step chaotic heavenly stage powerhouse. Chapter 2400. Bai Luoyu had been disinterested ever since he arrived at the ruins of Immortality Auction. This was the first time Bai Luoyu had made a bid. When the old man on the third floor saw that it was Bai Luoyu, he snorted in his heart but did not say anything. The Bai family of the East City was not to be trifled with. However, There was no expert from the Bai family this time. It was just a little girl. In that case, there was no need to be modest. The highest bidder would get it. 42 million immortal crystals. Old Man Zhao said after some thought. However, what made him excited was that Bai Liu did not continue to bid after he made his bid. Old Man Zhao knew that it was not because Bai Liu did not have that many immortal crystals on him, but because Bai Liu was not very interested in the nether flame. 50 million low-grade immortal crystals. Although Bai Liu was not interested, Wei Xiaoze really wanted the nether flame. Old Man Zhao felt helpless when he saw Wei Xiaoze joining the bidding. Among the Bai family, Song family, and Wei family of the East City, except for Chun Ye, 3 of the 4 big families were interested in the nether flame. When Old Man Zhao revealed his cultivation, Tang Ao felt very dissatisfied in his heart. That was because this old man, surnamed Zhao, clearly wanted to rely on his martial power to force others to back off. However, when he saw that there were still many people bidding, Tang Ao felt relieved. In the end, the nether flame that Tang Ao put up for auction was won by Wei Xiaoze. However, when Wei Xiaoze paid the immortal crystals, Tang Ao saw that Wei Xiaoze did not take out low-grade immortal crystals. Instead, he took out 5,000 mid-grade immortal crystals that Tang Ao had never seen before. There were 4 types of immortal crystals: low-grade, mid-grade, high-grade, and supreme-grade immortal crystals. 1 mid-grade immortal crystal could be exchanged for 10,000 low-grade immortal crystals, and so on and so forth. Originally, after the nether flame, the auction item was supposed to be Tang Ao's 3-star pill furnace. However, the 3-star pill furnace had been taken over by the Chamber of Immortality, so it did not flow out. After that, a large number of immortal artifacts and various pills were auctioned off. Some of these immortal artifacts and pills belonged to Tang Ao, while others belonged to other martial artists. However, the prices of these pills and immortal artifacts were quite normal. There was nothing special about them. And when the next auction item was taken out, Tang Ao suddenly perked up because the item being auctioned this time was the Violet Cloud Dew. The Violet Firmament Dew was a treasure used to nurture the sword refining fruit. If Tang Ao wanted to nurture the sword refining fruit, the Violet Firmament Dew was indispensable. On the auction stage, a maidservant came up with a jade tray. On the jade tray was a transparent crystal bottle. The bottle was half filled with a light purple liquid. When his soul remembrance swept over the light purple liquid, a warm and icy feeling instantly circulated through his body, making him feel very comfortable. Some of the martial artists knew what it was, but most of them were at a loss. This item is called Purple Cloud Dew. It can be consumed directly or used to cultivate spiritual herbs. The more Violet Firmament Dew there is, the more valuable it is. This half bottle of Violet Firmament Dew was found in a ruin by our Chamber of Immortality's martial artists. Although there isn't much of it, it is definitely old enough. If it wasn't for the fact that there was so little of this Violet Firmament Dew, Luo Hongying would not have brought it out to auction. Chapter 24:01. If it was used to brew immortal wine, this little amount of Purple Cloud Dew could only brew 1 cup. If it was used to cultivate extinct immortal plants, it would require even more Purple Cloud Dew. Only if it was used to nourish the seeds of the sword refinement fruit and awaken them from their slumber would the Purple Cloud Dew be more than enough. When he thought of this, Tang Ao decided that he had to get his hands on this bottle of Purple Cloud Dew no matter what. I won't go into detail about the value of the Purple Cloud Dew. The starting bid for this bottle is 1 million immortal crystals, and each increment must be no less than 10,000 immortal crystals. The bidding begins now. 1 million immortal crystals. As soon as Luo Hongying's words fell, Tang Ao immediately spoke up. Everyone was surprised when they heard Tang Ao's bid. Tang Ao's voice came from the 3rd floor, and the martial practitioners on the 3rd floor were all of high status. Since the beginning of the auction, only the martial practitioners on the 1st and 2nd floor had been bidding. The martial practitioners on the 3rd floor had spoken less than 10 times. Therefore, Tang Ao's bid immediately attracted many people's attention. When everyone saw that the bidder was actually Tang Ao, a trace of astonishment flashed across their eyes. The martial practitioners of South Ruin City knew that Tang Ao was a Grade 1 immortal pill master, so they weren't surprised that Tang Ao was bidding for the Purple Cloud Dew. The martial practitioners of North Ruin City were already martial practitioners of Langya Realm, but they didn't know Tang Ao's identity. However, when they saw that Tang Ao was sitting on the third floor of the Ruins of Immortality auction and was arrogant enough to ignore the restrictions, they knew that he wasn't someone to be trifled with. However, that was only true for others. Song Dongquan and Tang Ao had a grudge between them. Seeing that Tang Ao wanted this bottle of Purple Cloud Dew, Song Dongquan quickly said, 10 million immortal crystals. What? Song Dongquan's words caused an uproar. Since the start of the auction, there had been items that went for more than 10 million immortal crystals, but this was the first time a treasure had gone for more than 9 million immortal crystals. Normally, such a large bottle of Purple Cloud Dew would go for around 1 million to 1.5 million immortal crystals. Even if it was of good quality and age, it was already very good if such a large bottle could fetch 3 million immortal crystals. However, Song Dongquan and Tang Ao seemed to have some kind of conflict, and Song Dongquan actually raised the price to 10 million. 20 million. To everyone's surprise, of course, Tang Ao said without thinking. Furthermore, Tang Ao's bid was also very shocking. His bid had increased by 10 million immortal crystals. Hearing Tang Ao's bid, many people sucked in a breath of cold air. At this moment, everyone started to understand why everyone on the third floor had to use restrictions to shield themselves, except for Tang Ao. That was because Tang Ao was rich and overbearing, and he disdained to hide his head and show his tail. When Song Dongquan saw that Tang Ao was not angry and even directly quoted a price, he was speechless for a while. Song Dongquan still had 100 million low-grade immortal crystals on him. Although it was a lot, these low-grade immortal crystals were to be used to bid for a spear that had been refined to the 4th stage for his big brother. Although Song Dongquan could continue to raise the price, he was worried that if Tang Ao didn't want it anymore, he would be finished. Chapter 2402. Seeing this scene, everyone immediately looked at Song Dongquan with disdain. When they looked at Tang Ao, their eyes were filled with curiosity. Originally, when they saw Song Dongquan raise the price like that, many people thought that Tang Ao would fly into a rage out of humiliation. However, to everyone's surprise, Tang Ao completely ignored Song Dongquan and directly raised the price to 20 million low-grade immortal crystals. At this moment, everyone was looking forward to Song Dongquan continuing to raise the price. They wanted to see what Tang Ao would do if Song Dongquan continued to raise the price or not. Unfortunately, they would not have the chance to see this, because at this moment, Song Dongquan was gritting his teeth, but he did not dare to continue bidding. His martial arts talent could only be considered above average among the direct descendants of the Song family. However, because of the existence of his big brother, Song Dongxian, he always enjoyed the best treatment among the direct descendants of the Song family. Therefore, he did not dare to make any mistakes when his big brother asked him to bid for the golden spear. Although the Purple Cloud's Dew was good, after Tang Ao raised the price to 20 million, no one dared to bid against Tang Ao. After all, this Purple Cloud's Dew was rare in the Ruins of Immortality. It could be bought in some large commercial houses in Langya Realm. However, the Purple Cloud's Dew in the commercial houses was not as old and pure. However, the price of 20 million immortal crystals was still far higher than the price of the Purple Cloud's Dew. Tang Ao naturally knew about this, but even so, Tang Ao had no choice but to buy the Purple Cloud's Dew. There was no other reason than that Tang Ao did not know when he would be able to go to Langya Realm. He also did not know when he would be able to encounter the Purple Cloud's Dew again if he missed this opportunity. Immortal crystals were just a kind of resource. As long as it was a resource that could be used, it would be the most useful. Moreover, after this auction, Tang Ao would not be short of immortal crystals. As the purple cloud's dew was transferred to the transportation platform beside Tang Ao took out his black gold identity card and swiped it across the transportation platform. In an instant, 20 million immortal crystals were deducted from Tang Ao's black gold card. After the purple cloud dew, the next auction item was a piece of broken wall. It was a black stone tablet. When Tang Ao saw it, he was stunned at first, but then he found it familiar. Finally, Tang Ao understood that this stone tablet was the black brick he had seen before. Seeing this, Tang Ao was speechless. This stone tablet had actually become a black brick in the auction brochure. Regardless of whether it was the stone tablet or the black brick, Tang Ao was going to take this black stone tablet with him. After seeing this stone tablet, Tang Ao immediately saw the golden lines on the stone tablet. At this moment, not only Tang Ao, but many people were also looking at this stone tablet. However, without exception, no one could tell what this stone tablet was. Seeing that everyone was interested, Luo Hongying introduced, "This stone tablet was discovered by our Immortal Ruins Chamber of Commerce under the mysterious Yin River." Hearing the name Mysterious Yin River, the warriors in the ruins of immortality were at a loss. They did not know what kind of place Mysterious Yin River was, but the warriors from Langya Realm were all excited. Chapter 2403. It wasn't a tributary of the river Styx, but the source of the river Styx. In other words, the water in the river Styx came from the Styx River. There were countless souls in the Styx River. Any martialist who died in the vicinity of the Styx River would have their souls sucked into the Styx River. Although the Styx River contained boundless netherworld energy, it wasn't a place for souls to hide. Even a celestial turbid realm expert soul would lose consciousness the moment it entered the Styx River. If one entered the Styx River without any protection, one's physical body would collapse and decay very quickly. Although the Styx River was mysterious and terrifying, countless martialists still flocked to it. After all, treasures would often appear in the Styx River. When they heard Luo Hongying say that the stone tablet was a treasure found in the Styx River, many people were tempted. However, when Luo Hongying announced the price of the stone tablet, everyone immediately quieted down. The Chamber of Immortal Ruins has studied this stone tablet for 100 years, but we've found nothing. It might not be fated with us. Luo Hongying paused for a moment before continuing. Therefore, we've decided to take this stone tablet out and leave it for the fated one. The starting price of this nameless stone tablet is 10,000 intermediate-grade immortal crystals. You can bid for it with low-grade immortal crystals of the same value. 10,000 intermediate-grade immortal crystals. Tang Ao's head buzzed when he heard this price. 10,000 intermediate-grade immortal crystals was equivalent to 100 million low-grade immortal crystals. Using 100 million low-grade immortal crystals to bid for a stone of unknown use? Tang Ao felt that although this stone tablet might be related to the chaotic fire elemental bead, there was no evidence to prove that it was. If Tang Ao was asked to take out 100 million immortal crystals to bid for it, it would be impossible for Tang Ao to do so. Tang Ao couldn't do it, but there were many people who were interested in this stone tablet. 10,000 intermediate-grade immortal crystals. A shady voice came from not far away from Tang Ao. It was an ashen-skinned old man. When Tang Ao was bidding for the purple cloud dew, this old man had used his soul remembrance to investigate Tang Ao. Therefore, Tang Ao was rather concerned about this old man. Tang Ao sensed a dense aura of death from this old man. It was obvious that this old man's cultivation method leaned towards the dark underworld. 11,000 intermediate-grade immortal crystals. After hearing this bid, Tang Ao's expression became a bit strange. This was because the person who had bid this time was also related to Tang Ao. Previously, when the tortoise shell had appeared in the auction house, this old man and another old man from the Immortal Ruins auction had used their soul remembrance to probe Tang Ao. Old Demon Qi Lian, this old man cultivates the underworld shadow technique. This stone tablet is perfect for me to comprehend. You are a craftsman. Why are you competing with me? Inkei did not continue to bid, but asked calmly, Old Devil Scarlet Serpent? Hearing this name, Tang Ao's heart skipped a beat. This was because the eldest disciple of Tao Lord Sky Fire was called Qi Lianzi. This person was called Old Demon Qi Lian, and he was a craftsman. Could he be that Qi Lianzi, or was he related to Qi Lianzi? Tang Ao thought to himself, 12,000 intermediate grade immortal crystals. Inkei did not wait for Old Demon Qi Lian's reply and bid again. Hee, I'm also interested in this stone tablet. 13,000 intermediate grade immortal crystals. The person who bid this time was Wei Xiaozi, who was sitting on the second floor. Although Wei Xiaozi's purpose for this trip was not this stone tablet, he was very interested in it. Chapter 2404. 14,000 mid-grade immortal crystals. After Inkei finished speaking, he bid again. This steal was Inkei's goal this time. Therefore, unless Wei Xiaozi and the others didn't want anything else and competed with him, he wouldn't be able to get this steal. However, with Xian here, Wei Xiaozi and the others' goal was obviously something else. Old Yin freak, if you want to bid, just bid properly. Why you keep stopping others for bidding? Luo Hongying giggled and said to Yin Quebec, I'm all alone, and my financial resources are limited. If I don't spend some effort, this steal won't belong to me. In the end, under Inkei's persuasion, Inkei won the steal for 18,000 mid-grade immortal crystals. After getting the steal, Inkei coldly snorted and immediately left. However, before Inkei left, he unexpectedly left a soul remembrance imprint on Tang Ao's body. As soon as Inkei left, an old man suddenly appeared in the place where Inkei had just been. After checking for a while, the old man was about to leave. However, he seemed to have thought of something and actually waved his hand to leave a soul remembrance imprint on Tang Ao's body. If it were an ordinary astral reaching realm martial artist, he naturally wouldn't be able to see all of this. However, Tang Ao was not an ordinary astral reaching realm martial artist. Therefore, the entire action was clearly seen by Tang Ao. It was like watching someone grab a handful of mud and sprinkle it on your body. Although Tang Ao knew, at this moment, Tang Ao could only pretend that he didn't know anything. When the old man saw that Tang Ao didn't have any expression on his face, he nodded in satisfaction. Then, he took a step forward and disappeared. After the old man disappeared, there were still waves of faint spatial fluctuations at the place where the old man had just been. At this moment, a phrase suddenly popped out. Spatial transfer. Spatial transfer was the signature technique of Chaotic Heaven realm martial artists. Martial artists who hadn't reached Chaotic Heaven realm, even half-step Chaotic Heaven realm martial artists like Inkei, couldn't perform this spatial transfer. At this moment, Tang Ao also knew who this old man was. This elder brother was the martial artist that had used soul remembrance to investigate him with the Scarlet Serpent Old Devil. After he left, Tang Ao saw the cultivator, known as Old Demon Qi Lian, take out a space-breaking talisman and slap it on his body. After slapping the space-breaking talisman, Old Devil Qi Lian looked in the direction of Tang Ao and said in surprise, You can see me? After saying this, a white light flashed and Old Devil Qi Lian disappeared. On the other hand, Tang Ao was quite frightened by Old Devil Scarlet Serpent's words. This was the first time Tang Ao was discovered by someone when he used skypolarity eyes to scan others. After the unknown stone tablet was sold for a sky-high price, everyone in the auction house became excited. They wanted to see what treasure would be auctioned next. At this moment, a maidservant brought over a jade plate with a piece of crystal on it. After seeing this crystal, Tang Ao was delighted because this crystal was the black tortoise blood crystal that Tang Ao needed. The black tortoise blood crystal was also a treasure, but it didn't have many uses. Therefore, Tang Ao wasn't surprised and bought this black tortoise blood crystal. After the black tortoise blood crystal, A few fourth-grade immortal herbs appeared one after another. Tang Ao didn't hesitate and bought all of them. Seeing this, many people wanted to go crazy. Chapter 2405. All right, this auction will temporarily end here. Everyone rest for half a day. Tonight, we will begin bidding for the final 10 treasures of this auction. Luo Hongying said, as everyone watched speechlessly as Tang Ao bid for a large pile of materials. Hearing Luo Hongying's words, everyone was delighted. They all got up and walked out of the auction house, asking each other what the final 10 treasures were. Of course, there was also a portion of people who closed their eyes and sat in their original spots, waiting for the final segment to begin. Tang Ao sat in his original spot, but this time, Tang Ao casually set up a first-grade restriction around him. This restriction was very crude, and an Yin-Yang realm martial artist's soul remembrance could easily penetrate it. However, if an expert used soul remembrance to spy on him, Tang Ao would immediately know. After setting up the restriction, Tang Ao took out the purple cloud dew that he had previously bid for to have a look. Just now, after bidding for the purple cloud dew, Tang Ao immediately put it away. At this moment, Tang Ao wanted to inspect the bottle carefully and then keep it safe. However, this time, when Tang Ao picked up the purple cloud dew, Tang Ao was shocked. This was because Tang Ao discovered that the jade bottle containing the purple cloud dew wasn't simple. This jade bottle was surprisingly made from a 9th-grade immortal material called void jade. Although the purple cloud dew was a decent treasure, using void jade to store it in a jade box was too extravagant. This much void jade could be used to refine a void ring. The void ring had its own small world, similar to Tang Ao's Primal Chaos 6-light mirror. However, it didn't have complete heaven and earth laws, so its range was limited. However, it could be used to grow ordinary immortal herbs and raise some ordinary immortal birds. After discovering that this jade bottle was actually made from void jade, Tang Ao immediately used heavenly pole pupils to examine the jade bottle. With just a glance, Tang Ao showed a shocked expression. That was because this jade bottle was sealed by a grade 9 immortal array. This grade 9 immortal array had been torn open by brute force. The person who tore open this hole seemed to know some array formations. Then, he used a grade 3 immortal array to seal the hole. However, as time passed, the grade 3 immortal array was on the verge of collapsing. It was also because of this that one of the 9 types of spiritual liquids in the space of the jade bottle was revealed. Even Tang Ao did not expect the jade bottle to have such a large space. Under the observation of Tang Ao's sky polarity eyes, he saw that there were 9 large ponds with a radius of 1,000 feet in the jade bottle. These large ponds all contained extremely precious spiritual liquids. Even with the preciousness of the violet cloud dew, it was ranked the lowest among the 9 ponds. Other than the purple cloud dew, Tang Ao also saw the thunderstorm nectar and the lunar true water. There were also 6 types of spiritual liquids. Tang Ao had some impression of them, but he couldn't name them. If he spent 20 million low-grade immortal crystals to buy a small bottle of violet cloud dew, it would be a huge loss. However, after finding out that this small jade bottle was actually a spatial jade box made of void jade, Tang Ao made a killing. 20 million immortal crystals wasn't even enough to buy a corner of the void jade bottle. With this discovery, Tang Ao quickly put up a restriction and kept the void jade bottle. As for the other 6 spiritual liquids in the jade bottle, Tang Ao would have time to study them in the future. After keeping the void jade bottle, Tang Ao took out the black tortoise blood crystal. Originally, Tang Ao thought that there would be a lot of blood crystals in an auction of this scale. However, Tang Ao had not expected that a 4 spirits blood crystal would appear from the beginning to the end. By now, Tang Ao had basically achieved his goal of coming to the auction. He had obtained the black tortoise blood crystal and the violet cloud dew. As for the stone tablet, Tang Ao really didn't have the ability to fight for it. Moreover, with the soul remembrance imprints of 2 powerful warriors on his body, Tang Ao understood that even if he won the stone tablet, he would still end up as someone else's wedding dress in the end. As for the two soul remembrance imprints on his body, Tang Ao pondered for a moment and suddenly felt a cold gaze on him. Tang Ao raised his head and immediately saw Song Dongkuan sitting on the second floor. After seeing Song Dongkuan, Tang Ao's eyes immediately lit up. Just now, Tang Ao was still thinking about how to deal with these two soul remembrance imprints. The moment he saw Song Dongkuan, Tang Ao immediately understood what to do with these two soul remembrance imprints. Without much to say, Tang Ao immediately peeled off the soul remembrance imprints from his body and used his soul remembrance to brand it on Song Dongkuan's body. If Song Dongkuan was an yin-yang realm martial artist, he might have been able to detect Tang Ao's actions. Unfortunately, this Song Dongkuan was only at the 5th level of the astral reaching realm. Although his cultivation was a bit higher than Tang Ao's, his soul remembrance compared to Tang Ao's was like heaven and earth. Chapter 2406. Tang Ao knew 3 of the last 10 treasures of the ruins of Immortality Auction. These 3 treasures were the pure gold sword, pure gold saber, and pure gold spear that Tang Ao had refined with pure gold sand not long ago. Pure gold sand wasn't considered a top-grade immortal material. It was only a 4th-grade immortal material. In true martial domain, there were many materials that were better than pure gold sand. However, those top-grade immortal materials were all in the hands of the Overlord forces. It was already very good for an ordinary martial artist to obtain an immortal tool made from pure gold sand. The reason why pure gold sand was only a 4th-grade immortal material was because it contained more than 90% impurities. For an immortal material to still be a 4th-grade immortal material after containing 90% impurities, it was clearly not an ordinary material. Since ancient times, countless talented refiners had tried to remove the impurities from the pure gold sand. However, they had little success. This was because the impurities in the pure gold sand were almost one with it. After countless years of research by countless refiners, they discovered that the impurities in the pure gold sand were pure gold powder. Pure gold powder was a 3rd-grade immortal material. This material was very special. It almost didn't exist on its own. It was usually mixed with other materials. Moreover, pure gold powder and pure gold sand were the most compatible. After the two were mixed, even the high temperature of the immortal flame could only melt the pure gold sand. It couldn't remove the pure gold powder from the pure gold sand. When Tang Ao was refining the immortal tools, he naturally discovered this problem. After discovering this problem, Tang Ao didn't think of using refining methods to resolve it. Instead, he thought of using pill refining methods to deal with it. Therefore, naturally, Tang Ao thought of the ice purification method. This method was used to remove the impurities in the pill refining process. Therefore, Tang Ao refined the pure gold sand as a pill. He didn't expect it to have such a miraculous effect. He directly removed 60% of the impurities in the pure gold sand. After 60% of the impurities were removed, the pure gold sand became translucent. Of course, it wasn't just a change in appearance. More importantly, after 60% of the impurities were removed, the pure gold sand's strength greatly increased. It was also more compatible with immortal spiritual power. When using this kind of pure gold sand to refine an immortal artifact, one's immortal spiritual energy would be unobstructed and its power would be even greater. Of course, many people came with a skeptical attitude. The crimson gold sword, crimson gold saber, and other treasures were just what the Chamber of Immortal Ruins advertised to the public. As for what these treasures were like, he would have to see them with his own eyes to know. Actually, there was no need for the Chamber of Commerce in the ruins of immortality to give them half a day of rest. The reason they stopped for half a day was to let everyone prepare the immortal crystals. After all, a lot of good treasures had been auctioned before. Although there were many people here, they were well prepared. But because there were too many treasures that had appeared before, it was inevitable that the following 10 treasures would be a little difficult to make ends meet. Half a day passed quickly, and a small number of people had already left in advance. It was obvious that these people had obtained what they wanted. Knowing that he wouldn't be able to bid for the rest of the treasures, he didn't have the mood to stay and watch, so he left early. However, most people chose to stay. Even though there were only 10 treasures in the finale, it was still good to stay and broaden their horizons. Chapter 2407. Everyone was excited to see Luo Hongying. There were many surprises in this Immortal Ruins auction. No one knew what the next 10 treasures would be up for auction. Luo Hongying smiled charmingly at the crowd below the stage. She waved her hand, and a wooden box appeared in her hand. As soon as the wooden box appeared, everyone's attention was drawn to it. However, the restriction on the wooden box was so powerful that it blocked everyone's soul remembrance. Therefore, they could only see the wooden box, but didn't know what treasure was inside. After Tang Ao scanned it with his soul remembrance, Tang Ao knew that there was a 4th rank restriction on the wooden box. Tang Ao could open this restriction, but if Tang Ao touched it, Luo Hongying would naturally know. Luo Hongying took out this wooden box and naturally wanted to open it. Tang Ao didn't need to forcibly break this restriction just to see what was inside. Luo Hongying smiled and slowly opened the wooden box after she successfully piqued everyone's interest. There was a broad beam glowing with green light in the wooden box. When they saw this thing, most of them had a blank look on their faces. Obviously, they didn't know what it was. Tang Ao couldn't help but take a deep breath when he saw this broad beam glowing with green light. The last 10 treasures of the Immortal Ruins auction were indeed not simple. This broad beam was called wood cardamom, which was a kind of divine item that had been extinct for a long time. Not to mention the Langya boundary. Even the entire true martial world couldn't find a Zimu, cardamom. This wood cardamom wasn't a natural immortal herb. It was refined by an alchemist using the soul-nurturing bean. The soul-nurturing bean was originally an ordinary immortal herb. Its function was simple, to nourish the soul. However, ever since an alchemist used a special method to refine the soul-nurturing bean into a wood cardamom, the soul-nurturing bean was destroyed. The wood cardamom's function was to nourish a strand of a martial artist's blood soul. In other words, as long as you had a wood cardamom, you could put a strand of your blood soul into the wood cardamom to nourish it. This wisp of blood soul is connected to your life, but it is currently in a dormant state. However, your main body must have fallen, and the seed wood cardamom will awaken. Even if your soul has been destroyed because of the existence of the blood soul in the Zimu cardamom, you can seize another body and be reborn. As long as he could get this seed wood cardamom, it was equivalent to having 2 lives. Thus, many people were confused, but there were also some whose eyes were red and their breathing became hurried. Compared to his own life, other treasures were not treasures at all. Therefore, many people were looking at this life-saving item with fiery eyes. After cultivating a seed, wood cardamom, even if his body and soul were destroyed, he would not die. Of course, it was not easy to cultivate. Everyone had gone through countless hardships and dangers to reach their current level of cultivation. With the Zimu cardamom, he would be able to preserve a trace of his blood soul after his death. However, this trace of blood soul did not have a strong cultivation base, and it would need to be possessed to regain a body. Therefore, there were always different opinions about this seed cardamom. Some people thought that it was the most precious treasure in the world, while others thought that the Zimu cardamom was an evil and vicious thing. Chapter 2408. As you can see, this is a wood cardamom. Some of the friends here know about Zimu cardamom, while some have never heard of it. Now, let me tell you about it. The wood cardamom is refined from the soul-nourishing bean, an immortal spirit herb that has already gone extinct in the true martial world. So far, no one has been able to cultivate the soul-nourishing bean. You can only find traces of the soul-nourishing bean in some relics and the treasures of the great forces. After listening to Luo Hongying's introduction, Tang Ao knew that apart from bidding for treasures that he needed, there was another great benefit of attending an auction like this, which was to broaden his horizons. Just like now, many people didn't know the relationship between the soul cultivation bean and the wood cardamom, but Luo Hongying introduced them to everyone in detail. Of course, there was a reason why he spoke in such detail. The more detailed he was, the more the crowd would understand. The more he learned about it, the more he realized how precious it was. Needless to say, after knowing the preciousness of this Zimu cardamom, everyone would definitely compete to fight for it. When auctioning an item, no matter what it was, there would be a 10% handling fee. Therefore, the higher the price of the item, the more profit the auction house would make. Luo Hongying quickly finished the introduction of the Zimu cardamom. Before Luo Hongying's introduction, almost two-thirds of the warriors present didn't know the use of the Zimu cardamom. But after Luo Hongying finished, everyone eagerly looked at the wooden box on the auction stage. Having the seed, wood cardamom, was equivalent to having an extra life. Although the Zimu cardamom was heavily restricted, it did not affect its heaven-defying effect. Well, that's enough chatter. Now, let's start the auction of this seed, wood cardamom. This alphabet cardamom doesn't accept immortal crystals. It will be auctioned by bartering for 30 minutes. The highest bidder will get it. Tang Ao thought to himself, sure enough, a treasure like the Zimu cardamom, its value could no longer be measured by immortal crystals. That was why they used this method of bartering. But even so, if there was no item that satisfied the auctioneer in the auction, they wouldn't be able to get this seed wood cardamom. Tang Ao was not very interested in this wooden cardamom. What Tang Ao was more interested in was the soul, nourishing bean used to refine the wood cardamom. Unfortunately, the soul-nurturing bean had already gone extinct. Even Tang Ao did not have a soul-nurturing bean plant on him. Therefore, if a soul-nurturing bean appeared now, Tang Ao was willing to bid for it. But now it was the seed cardamom, so there was no need for Tang Ao to expose his financial resources. Ordinary people may not know, but as an alchemist, Tang Ao immediately knew that this was a failed alchemy product after learning about the Zimu cardamom. After careful analysis, Tang Ao discovered that the creator of the Zimu cardamom, alchemist Zimu, originally wanted to use the Zimu cardamom to reconstruct the corporeal body of a fallen martial artist. In other words, after a martial artist's body perished, the seed wood cardamom would immediately awaken and help the martial artist reconstruct their physical body. In the end, alchemist Zimu made a mistake somewhere, causing the greatest effect of the wooden cardamom to be unable to be unleashed. There are more than 300 ways to refine wooden cardamom in Zhenwu Jie. Chapter 2409. Hearing Luo Hongying say that the seed wood cardamom would be traded with other items, everyone went silent for a while. There were many treasures that could compete with the seed wood cardamom, and many people here could take them out. However, everyone was hesitating whether they should expose their treasures or not. With the reputation of the Immortal Ruins Chamber of Commerce, it would be fine even if they exposed their treasures. However, this time, the Immortal Ruins auction was not held in the Langya realm, but in another Immortal Ruins. In the Langya realm, it would be easy to escape. Even if they exposed their treasures, as long as they were smart, it would not be a problem. However, things were different now that they were in the Immortal Ruins. After leaving the Immortal Ruins, they were surrounded by an endless void. Yin-Yang realm martial artists could ignore this kind of void, but astral-reaching realm martial artists would be in great danger if they entered this kind of void. However, the silence didn't last long. Immediately, a martial artist opened his mouth. The martial artist who spoke was no stranger to everyone. It was Wei Xiaoze, who had been in the limelight a while ago. President Luo, I wonder what kind of treasure this seed wood cardamom will be exchanged for? Please tell us in detail. Otherwise, if we all take out our treasures and test them one by one, wouldn't it be a waste of time? As soon as Wei Xiaoze said this, a lot of people looked at him with gratitude. Apart from a few people, most people here didn't care about time. After cultivating to the astral-reaching realm, martial artists had a lifespan of 100,000 years. How many days could a mirror auction take? The reason why everyone was grateful to Wei Xiaozi was because if Luo Hongying really gave them a direction, then they would naturally not need to take out their treasures if they didn't meet the requirements of the seed wood cardamom. Brother Xiaozi, is indeed straightforward. It's just that by saying this, you'll be helping everyone, but offending the Immortal Ruins auction. Brother Xiaozi, aren't you afraid at all? Ha ha ha. Wei Xiaozi laughed. The Immortal Ruins Chamber of Commerce has dominated the 4 great martial realms, and is even rooted in the Langya realm, controlling 50% of the cultivation resources there. Of course, I'm afraid. Of course, I think that such a big Immortal Ruins Chamber of Commerce wouldn't make things difficult for a little Wei Xiaozi. On the 3rd floor, Tang Ao was listening to the conversation between Wei Xiaozi and Luo Hongying. He was hesitating whether he should buy this seed, wood cardamom, or not. Although Tang Ao wanted the soul cultivation bean more, this kind of seed wood cardamom was also a treasure that could only be found by luck. However, Tang Ao didn't know what kind of treasure the seller wanted to exchange for the Zimu cardamom. Since Big Brother Xiaozi has asked, I'll say a few words to everyone. This wooden cardamom was put up for auction by an elder of the Immortal Ruins Chamber of Commerce. This elder needs a portion of living soil. If they had living soil, as long as it was the size of a fist, they could exchange it immediately. Other than the first time, we can consider any soil suitable for planting immortal spirit herbs and other supplementary treasures. Luo Hongying paused for a moment before continuing. Now that I've mentioned it, I'm sure everyone knows who this elder is. That's right, the person who put up this wooden cardamom is the first alchemist of the Immortal Ruins Chamber of Commerce. He's also the supreme elder of the Immortal Ruins Chamber of Commerce, Lu Musheng. Elder Lu definitely has more treasures than this wooden cardamom. As long as you can satisfy Elder Lu, he definitely won't let you down. Chapter 24:10. As the only Pill Emperor in Langya Boundary, Pill Emperor Lu is indeed extraordinary. But I don't know what this life soil is. It's a supplementary treasure for growing immortal herbs. Who would collect it if they weren't pill masters? What a pity. I don't have life soil, but I wonder if a gourd of life soil will do. After Luo Hongying said that Lu Musheng had put this wood cardamom up for auction, the martial artists from Langya Boundary started discussing. As for the martial artists from Ruins of Immortality, most of them were still confused. But even in Ruins of Immortality, very few martial artists had heard of Lu Musheng. Hence, they were whispering to the people around them. Tang Ao immediately understood that Lu Musheng was the chief pill master of Ruins of Immortality Chamber of Commerce. At the same time, Lu Musheng was a 7th grade pill master and the only pill emperor in Langya Boundary. In true martial boundary, 1st grade to 3rd grade pill masters were known as pill monarchs. 4th grade to 6th grade pill masters were known as pill kings. 7th grade to 9th grade pill masters were known as pill emperors. Langya Boundary was vast and had countless territories. But in the vast Langya Boundary, there was only one pill emperor, Lu Musheng. Hence, Lu Musheng's name was known everywhere in Langya Boundary. Even in a remote place like Ruins of Immortality, people had heard of him. While everyone was discussing Lu Musheng was behind the auction stage, enveloping it with his sole remembrance. Lu Musheng rarely left Ruins of Immortality Chamber of Commerce in Langya Boundary. This time, he had come to Ruins of Immortality because one of his unnamed disciples had found a soul-nurturing flower there. The eruption of the Heavenly Fire ruins had exposed some of the ancient cave dwellings within. Just like how Tang Ao had found the sword-refining fruit in an ancient cave abode, Lu Musheng's unnamed disciple had found a soul-nurturing flower in an ancient cave abode. The soul-nurturing flower was the plant of the soul-nurturing bean. As long as it was cared for properly, it could produce countless soul-nurturing beans. However, the soul-nurturing flower was extinct now. Even a super chamber of commerce, like Ruins of Immortality Chamber of Commerce, did not have a soul-nurturing flower. However, the soul-nourishing flower was in a very bad state at the moment. The defensive array that was originally used to protect the soul-nourishing flower was already broken. That defense array was an ancient array formation, and its structure was completely different from the current array formations. The greatest use of that formation was to provide nutrients for the soul, nourishing true flower, providing it with an endless supply of vitality. Now that there was no array formation, there was only the life soil to nurture the soul, nourishing true flower. In the main building of the Shop of Immortality, there were many treasures that were even better than the life soil, let alone the life soil. However, even if Lu Mushing set off now, it would still take him 20 days to return to the headquarters of the Chamber of Immortality in the Langya realm. Right now, this soul, nourishing true flower, could not even last for 1 day, let alone 20 days. Therefore, Lu Mushing was even prepared to ask the Celestial Palace Patriarch of the ruins of Immortality Chamber of Commerce to send the treasures across the void between realms. However, even though Lu Mushing's status in the Chamber of Immortal Ruins was extraordinary, he was not an ordinary person. However, it was not easy to get the old ancestor to take action. Among the 3 patriarchs of the Chamber of Commerce in the ruins of Immortality, one traveled around all year round, while the other cultivated in seclusion all year round. The other one was in charge of the Chamber of Commerce in the Immortal Ruins in another martial world. Therefore, Lu Mushing could only ask for the help of the patriarch who was in seclusion. Chapter 24:11. What puzzled Lu Mushing was that after the bidding for the Zimu cardamom began, everyone fell into a brief silence. Lu Mushing's heart sank. Needless to say, no one here had any living soil. Otherwise, under such temptation, no matter the reason, he would definitely take out the life soil. Although Lu Mushing was disappointed that he didn't have any living soil, he still hoped to take out other treasures that could sustain life or help grow immortal herbs. The Chamber of Immortal Ruins had many of these things. However, Lu Mushing had come in a hurry and hadn't prepared well enough, which led to the current situation. These are 10 fire thunder spheres. Each of them is equivalent to a full force attack from a level 1 yin-yang realm expert. Although the fire thunder spheres can't compare to the wooden cardamom, there are more of them. I wonder if we can exchange them for the wooden cardamom, a red-haired, middle-aged warrior said. Everyone was calm when they heard the fire thunder spheres. That was because the Fire Lightning Prince's request and Lu Mushing's request were worlds apart, completely incomparable. The Fire Thunder Spheres are not bad, but they don't meet Elder Lu's requirements, Luo Hongying said as she shook her head. I have a 3rd-grade Immortal Flame, Golden Crow Fire. Can I exchange it with Elder Lu? This is a top-grade Heaven Jade. Everyone who was interested in the wooden cardamom started bidding. However, among the treasures taken out by the crowd, there were some decent items. However, up until now, Lu Mushing had not taken a fancy to any of them. Not only that, but as more and more people took out their treasures, Lu Mushing's face turned bitter. This true soul nourishing flower was most likely the last true soul nourishing flower in the true martial realm. Lu Mushing didn't want such a treasure to go extinct. However, it seemed like it was too extravagant to obtain living soil in a remote place like the ruins of Immortal. None of the treasures mentioned by the crowd had anything to do with life, let alone living soil. I have a gourd of living water here. I wonder if I can exchange it with Elder Lu? A warrior said, just as Lu Mushing was about to give up. After hearing the words breath water, Lu Mushing's figure flickered and immediately appeared on the auction stage. A gourd of breath-generating water is not enough. If you have a cauldron of breath-generating water, you can take this wooden cardamom away. If you only have this gourd of breath water, I can also give you a mysterious enlightenment pill. Lu Mushing didn't waste any time and spoke directly after he appeared. Hearing Lu Mushing's words, the martial artist was overjoyed. The surrounding crowd also looked at the martial artist enviously. Something like the breath water was not considered very precious. In Langya World, there were many forests with dense, immortal spirit chi, and there was a high chance of obtaining life breath water. However, it was easy to obtain breath water, but difficult to preserve. It needed to be stored in a special container. and the sealing talisman had to be changed regularly to seal the life force of the breath water. Because of this, there were no less than 100 people present who had come into contact with the living water. However, only one person had managed to preserve the living water. Soon, the cultivator passed his breath water to Lu Musheng through the transmission array. Lu Musheng waved his hand and handed a jade bottle to the cultivator. Inside the bottle was a mysterious opening pill. Chapter 24:12. Level 4 Mystical Enlightenment pills corresponded to different breakthroughs. Low-grade pills could increase one's chances by 10%, while supreme-grade pills could increase it by 90%. It could be said that as long as one had a supreme-grade mystical enlightenment pill, breaking through to the yin-yang realm was practically a done deal. However, even though Lu Musheng was the only alchemy emperor in the Langya realm, he took out a high-grade mystical enlightenment pill instead of supreme-grade one. However, even a high-grade mystical enlightenment pill was something that countless people envied. A high-grade mystical enlightenment pill had a 50% chance of breaking through to the yin-yang realm. This 50% did not mean that a martial artist would have a 50% chance of breaking through to the yin-yang realm after consuming a high-grade mystical enlightenment pill. Instead, it meant that the martial artist's chances of breaking through to the yin-yang realm would instantly increase by 50%. At this moment, many people were regretting that they did not bring a portion of life aura water with them. To preserve the life aura water, one had to spend some immortal crystals every month. However, compared to a high-grade mystical enlightenment pill, spending a few immortal crystals was nothing. One had to know that in an auction, a middle-grade mystical enlightenment pill could be sold for 10 million immortal crystals. Preserving a portion of life aura water was obviously not worth that many immortal crystals. Unfortunately, there was only one chance, and opportunities were only given to those who were prepared. Of course, this sentence was applicable to others, but when it came to Tang Ao, it didn't seem to be applicable. After some thought, Tang Ao separated a strand of his jade bone life soul and then integrated it into the soil in the chaotic hexagram mirror. The soil in the chaotic hexagram mirror was not ordinary soil, but soil that contained a strand of primal energy. Now that it was integrated with a strand of vitality, there was no problem growing ordinary immortal herbs. In fact, the soil in Tang Ao's hands was even better than the life aura water. However, this soil also had a flaw, and that was the constant loss of primal energy and vitality energy. After using it for about 10 days, this soil was no different from ordinary soil. After injecting the strand of vitality from the jade bone life soul, Tang Ao moved his mind, and a jade box appeared in Tang Ao's hands. The moment Tang Ao took out the jade box, Lu Musheng immediately looked in Tang Ao's direction, because in that instant, Lu Musheng felt a strong wave of vitality coming from Tang Ao. When he saw Lu Musheng looking at him, Tang Ao stood up and cupped his fists. Then he said, "This is a special kind of soil that I found in a historical site. Although it's not living soil, its effects are comparable to it." As he spoke, Tang Ao placed the jade box on the platform. With a flash of white light, the jade box appeared in Lu Musheng's hand. After Lu Musheng received the jade box, his face lit up with joy. Even though Zhang Xian had no idea what kind of soil was in the jade box, the rich vitality within it was more than sufficient to prolong the life of the soul-nourishing true flower. Lu Musheng immediately opened it and saw the soil in the jade box glowing with a green light. After observing with his divine telekinesis for a moment, Lu Musheng was overjoyed. Just now, Tang Ao's words were obviously modest. This kind of soil was definitely stronger than the life soil. In fact, it was not just a little bit stronger. At the same time, Lu Musheng was a little confused. He realized that even with his knowledge, he could not tell what the soil in the jade box was. Chapter 24:13. Lu Mushing estimated that this box of soil could only be used for 5 days at most before it became useless, unless it was sealed in a restriction. However, this box of willow wood had suddenly sprouted. Clearly, it was to be used to cultivate the soul-nourishing true flower. How could it be sealed in a restriction? Do you still have more of this soil? Lu Mushing thought for a moment and suddenly looked up at Tang Ao. One box was not enough, but if he had 4 more boxes, he could bring the soul-nourishing flower back to Langya Realm. After arriving at Langya Realm, with the endless treasures of the Chamber of Immortal Ruins, it would be very easy to cultivate the soul-nourishing flower. But the biggest problem now was how to keep the soul-nourishing flower alive before returning to Langya Realm. I still have some, but I don't want the wood cardamom. I want to exchange it for some soul-nourishing beans. There were no soul-nourishing beans in the Immortal Ruins. Even a treasure tower did not have them. Therefore, if Tang Ao wanted soul-nourishing beans, he could only do it through the Chamber of Immortal Ruins. Okay, 1 box of soil for 1 soul-nourishing bean. Lu Mushing was different from most alchemists. He had always done things quickly and decisively. After Tang Ao stated his conditions, Lu Mushing did not think much and immediately agreed to it. If you can exchange 1 box of soil for 3 soul-nourishing beans, I will do it now. This was the time to ask for a sky-high price, so Tang Ao would not be polite. Facing an expert like Lu Mushing, who was also the only alchemy emperor in Langya Realm, ordinary people would not dare to bargain. But Tang Ao was different. Tang Ao, who had the highest cultivation, had even seen experts at the Dao Master level. In terms of alchemy, Tang Ao's master, alchemy sage Greenrock, was considered the best alchemist in the true martial realm. For countless years, alchemists at the alchemy emperor level were rare, but there were still many. However, only Tang Ao's master, alchemy sage Greenrock, was known as the alchemy sage. It was unprecedented, and even if there were others in the future, it would not be easy. Okay, after Tang Ao finished speaking, Lu Mushing continued to agree. Seeing how straightforward Lu Mushing was, Tang Ao did not say anything else. He took out 9 jade boxes and teleported them to the auction stage. Including the jade boxes in Lu Mushing's hand, there were 10 in total. After Lu Mushing's soul remembrance swept through, a storage ring appeared in front of Tang Ao. Tang Ao searched with his soul remembrance and found that there were only 2 5th-rank items in the storage ring. One of them was a bag of soul-nurturing beans with a total of 30. The other item was a jade scroll. This jade scroll was obviously Lu Mushing's research on the soul cultivation bean. Seeing this, Tang Ao felt somewhat grateful. Because the soul-nourishing beans plant, the soul-nourishing flower, was completely extinct, countless people wanted to use the soul-nourishing bean to cultivate the soul-nourishing flower. But until now, no one had succeeded. Even so, the jade slip also recorded Lu Mushing's valuable experience. As a Tier 7 pill emperor, Lu Mushing's jade letter was extremely valuable. After receiving the 10 boxes of soil, Lu Mushing rolled up his sleeves and said, "Little girl from the Luo family, I'll give you this wooden cardamom." Chapter 24:14. Luo Hongying was flattered, while the crowd was envious. Most of them looked at Tang Ao strangely. No one expected that Tang Ao would dare to haggle with Lu Mushing. Furthermore, he even obtained 30 soul-nurturing beans from Lu Mushing. Although the soul-nurturing beans were not Zimu cardamom, there were many ways to refine it. As long as Tang Ao could hire a Grade 3 Immortal Alchemy Master, Tang Ao could obtain at least 20 Zimu cardamom. Many people secretly remembered Tang Ao's name. Although Tang Ao's status was not ordinary, he was able to sit on the 3rd floor. However, it should be possible for him to purchase a few soul-nurturing beans from Tang Ao. After the Zimu cardamom, one of the top 10 treasures of the Ruins of Immortality, was dealt with, the second auction item was taken out. It was a blue, transparent saber floating in the air. An old man with an unkempt beard and a fiery aura stood up abruptly when he saw the saber. Wow, who is this? How could he purify 60% of the impurities in the pure gold sand? At this moment, the entire auction house was silent. Everyone's eyes were staring in shock at the skinny old man who had suddenly appeared on the auction stage. Everyone had sensed Lu Muxing's presence on the auction stage. However, when the skinny old man appeared on the auction stage, no one noticed how he got there. It was as if the skinny old man had appeared out of thin air on the auction stage. Many people were shocked when they thought about how he had appeared out of thin air. Teleportation. A Muddy Sky state expert. Lu Muxing greets Senior Yinshan. After a short period of silence, Lu Muxing, who had left earlier, returned. Lu Muxing felt very gloomy in his heart. He couldn't understand how an auction of this scale could attract experts of the chaotic heaven stage. Moreover, the person who had come was not an ordinary Muddy Sky state expert, but Yin Shan, who ranked 10th among the Langya world's Muddy Sky state experts. Yin Shan was not only a Muddy Sky state expert, but also a Grade 7 Immortal Weapon Emperor, which was equivalent to Lu Muxing. However, Yin Shan was an ancient member of the Yin clan, so he was much older than Lu Muxing. Haha, don't worry about me. Take care of the treasure you obtained. I will visit it in the future. Yin Shan laughed heartily and patted Lu Muxing's shoulder. Although Yin Shan had only patted him a few times, Lu Muxing's expression changed drastically. After Yin Shan patted him a few times, Lu Muxing felt his body lighten. The oppressive feeling that he had felt earlier also vanished at this moment. Resentful spirit. Others did not know what happened, but Tang Ao saw it clearly. It looked like Yin Shan had only lightly patted Lu Muxing's body a few times, but in reality, he had injected a pale golden flame into Lu Muxing's body. After that, a black shadow was forced out of Lu Muxing's body by Yin Shan. Yin Shan wanted to use a pale golden flame to burn the resentful soul, but the resentful soul instantly escaped. All of this sounded complicated, but it actually happened in the blink of an eye. Among the people present, apart from Yin Shan and Tang Ao, who were surprised, even Lu Muxing himself had no idea what had just happened. However, Lu Muxing knew that something must have happened to his body, and Yin Shan had helped him deal with it. Thank you, Senior Yin Shan. Lu Muxing cupped his fists and bowed. It was said that Yin Shan was the easiest person to get along with among the Langya world's Muddy Sky state experts. After Lu Muxing had left, Yin Shan carefully examined the crimson gold saber that Tang Ao had refined. Yin Shan tapped the crimson gold saber with his fingers as he examined it. A crisp sound came from the crimson gold saber. The more Yin Shan looked at it, the more satisfied he was. Logically speaking, it was not impossible for the crimson gold saber to be refined into a Grade 9 immortal artifact. However, the crimson gold saber was clearly only a Grade 4 immortal artifact. This meant that the blacksmith who refined the crimson gold sand was only a Grade 4 blacksmith. After looking at it carefully for a long time, Yin Shan said, "Little girl, how do you want to trade for this item? Don't ask for too high a price. If it's too high and this old man cannot afford it, then this old man will lose a lot of face today." Chapter 24:15. After Yin Shan asked Luo Hongying, Luo Hongying felt awkward. After thinking for a moment, Luo Hongying decided to ask Tang Ao. She wanted to see what treasure Tang Ao wanted to exchange for, because Tang Ao had refined this golden red saber. Previously, Tang Ao had entrusted the ruins of Immortality Auction with full authority, so the auction would naturally maximize the benefits of the golden red saber. Now that a powerhouse like Yin Shan had joined in, Luo Hongying was in a difficult position. In that case, Luo Hongying simply let Tang Ao choose. Tang Ao was sitting in the audience, thinking about how to use the soul-nourishing beans to cultivate the soul-nourishing true flower. Suddenly, the black gold identity card in his storage ring moved. Tang Ao was stunned and immediately received Luo Hongying's sound transmission. It turned out that Luo Hongying was asking what he wanted to exchange for his golden red saber. After thinking for a moment, Tang Ao immediately transmitted to Luo Hongying, "I only need immortal crystals. the more the better. In the eyes of others, the value of this level of treasure was immeasurable and could only be exchanged for other things. However, Luo Hongying didn't expect that Tang Ao wanted immortal crystals at this time. The reason why Tang Ao wanted immortal crystals was because immortal crystals were cultivation resources, and immortal crystals were universal in the true martial domain. As long as you had immortal crystals, you could buy anything. Instead of exchanging for some useless things, it was better to exchange them for immortal crystals. However, Tang Ao didn't want low-grade immortal crystals. It would be best if it was middle-grade or high-grade immortal crystals, which was what Tang Ao wanted. Luo Hongying looked in Tang Ao's direction with some astonishment. Others didn't know who had put these treasures up for auction, but Luo Hongying knew. Luo Hongying couldn't imagine that Tang Ao would ask for immortal crystals when he had the opportunity to ask for immortal crystals. Although Yin Shan had said that, he was still a grade 7 immortal weapon emperor. It definitely had a lot of treasures on him. The warriors of the Chamber of Commerce in the Immortal Ruins did not lack immortal crystals during their cultivation. So in their opinion, immortal crystals could only be regarded as a lower middle resource. Truly good things could not be measured with immortal crystals, so they used the method of bartering. Therefore, Luo Hongying was very surprised that Tang Ao wanted to exchange for immortal crystals. However, Luo Hongying quickly said, "Senior Yin Shan, this crimson gold saber will not be exchanged for treasures. It will be auctioned using immortal crystals." In Luo Hongying's opinion, if she were Tang Ao, she would definitely give this crimson gold saber to Yin Shan. This was because Luo Hongying knew that other than this crimson gold saber, Tang Ao also had a crimson gold sword and a crimson gold spear. If he gave this scarlet gold saber to Yin Shan, he might not be able to gain Yin Shan's friendship, but he would definitely have a good impression of Tang Ao. In the true martial realm, Muddy Heaven Realm experts had a lot of say. Yin Shan was even ranked among the top 10 experts in the Langya realm. Needless to say, as long as Yin Shan said the word, Tang Ao could immediately leave the Immortal Ruins and go to the Langya realm. However, these were only Luo Hongying's thoughts. She had no right to interfere with what Tang Ao wanted to do, nor did she want to. Use immortal crystals? Yin Shan had lived for a very long time. In the Langya realm, there were probably no more than a few warriors older than Yin Shan. Therefore, Yin Shan had experienced too many things. Even if Tang Ao made an excessive request, Yin Shan could accept it. However, Yin Shan had never expected that Tang Ao would actually use immortal crystals to auction such a top-notch treasure. Chapter 24:16. Yin Shan couldn't help but shake his head. Yin Shan didn't know that Tang Ao had consigned this scarlet gold saber for auction, but when Luo Hongying had sent a voice transmission to Tang Ao, she naturally couldn't hide it from a turbid Heaven Realm expert like Yin Shan. Yin Shan had an easygoing personality. Although he sighed inwardly, since Tang Ao wanted immortal crystals, Yin Shan could use immortal crystals to exchange with Tang Ao. Many people were moved when they heard that this treasure was being auctioned with immortal crystals. This kind of immortal weapon refined from scarlet gold sand had a very high affinity with immortal spiritual force. It could be used as a natal magic treasure to be nourished in one's body. Such a treasure was being auctioned with immortal crystals. Such a good thing might only happen a few times in one's life. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, many people wouldn't have believed that such a thing could actually happen to them. But what made everyone depressed was that Yin Shan, a top expert of the Langya realm, was actually here at this time. Be it in terms of wealth or strength, there weren't many cultivators in the Langya realm who were stronger than Yin Shan. Not to mention, this was a remote place like the ruins of immortality. At this moment, everyone could only hope that Yin Shan wouldn't be too unsightly. There were a total of 3 scarlet gold immortal weapons up for auction. Everyone hoped that Yin Shan would bid for 1 or 2 and stop instead of all 3. There was a limited number of divine weapons in the world. Only a small number of divine weapons were born during the creation of the world. Moreover, These divine weapons were basically in the hands of top experts. It was basically impossible for ordinary cultivators to obtain a divine weapon. However, there were many immortal weapons. Apart from those that were born after the creation of the world, there were also immortal weapons refined by blacksmiths. There was a huge difference between these immortal weapons. Take the 3 scarlet gold immortal weapons up for auction, for example. Although they were only grade 4 immortal weapons, their value was higher than grade 7 or even grade 8 immortal weapons. Generally speaking, as long as the affinity between an immortal weapon and the cultivator's immortal essence exceeded 60%, the immortal weapon could be stored in the spiritual sea to be nourished. Under the nourishment of the spiritual sea's Tao, the immortal weapon's power could constantly grow. However, most of the immortal equipment had less than 30% compatibility with a martial artist's immortal essence. This kind of immortal equipment was the most common. Apart from a few very high-grade immortal equipment, most of them were used by martial artists during their cultivation journey. The 3 scarlet gold immortal artifacts that were auctioned off in the ruins of immortality this time had a rare 70% affinity with the immortal core power in a martial artist's body. An immortal artifact of this level, after being nourished in the body for 10,000 years, will be comparable to a connate divine artifact in terms of power. And because it was connected to his own blood soul, it was more flexible and could be controlled as he wished. Yin Shan smiled nonchalantly and said, "Fine, since everyone is here to bid, let's follow the rules of the Chamber of Commerce in the immortal ruins." After saying that, Yin Shan's figure flickered and appeared on the first level of the audience seats. The 2 warriors beside Yin Shan were not used to it at this moment. They had not expected that the old man they had been chatting with was the famous grade 7 immortal weapon emperor of the Langya boundary, Emperor Yin Shan. However, this also made the 2 of them believe that Yin Shan was amiable and approachable. If Yin Shan hadn't been recognized just now, the 2 of them would never have thought that the person sitting here talking to them today was one of the top 10 experts of the Langya boundary. Chapter 24:17. Some celestial turbid realm experts could only teleport hundreds of meters away, while some martial artists could cross countless realms. Looking at Yin Shan's calm expression, one could tell that the spatial shift from before was nothing to Yin Shan. Tang Ao didn't dwell on this issue. He looked at Luo Hongying on the auction stage with anticipation. Although the Mountain of Immortal Ruins would take a 10% commission for the items auctioned in the Immortal Ruins, Tang Ao was still looking forward to seeing how many immortal crystals his 3 immortal artifacts could sell for. The grand competition of the Immortal Ruins would be held in 3 months. By then, Tang Ao would definitely be able to enter the Langya realm. Since he was going to the Langya realm, he couldn't be lacking in immortal crystals. On the auction stage, Luo Hongying smiled faintly and said softly, "The treasure for this auction is the crimson gold saber that you see." After being appraised by the appraisers of the Immortal Ruins, this crimson gold saber has a terrifying 70% affinity with immortal essence. A treasure of this level is rare even in the Langya realm, let alone the Immortal Ruins. According to the client's request, this crimson gold saber will be auctioned using immortal crystals. The rules remain the same. The highest bidder wins. The starting price of the crimson gold saber is 1,000 mid-grade immortal crystals. Each bid must be at least 10 mid-grade immortal crystals. The auction begins now. Everyone had different expressions when they heard the price. The martial artists of the Immortal Ruins were at a loss. They didn't have much of an idea about 1,000 mid-grade immortal crystals. After all, there were very few places in the Immortal Ruins that required immortal crystals. Due to the scarcity of immortal crystals, the martial artists of the Immortal Ruins used contribution points as currency. Even among the martial artists of the Immortal Ruins, only a few had seen mid-grade immortal crystals. Compared to the martial artists of the Immortal Ruins, the martial artists of the Langya realm had not only seen mid-grade immortal crystals, but many of them also had them. However, 1,000 mid-grade immortal crystals was still an astronomical figure for them. The people of the Wendao Academy also gaped. as students of the One Tao Academy. Most of them came from cultivation families. But even for the descendants of these cultivation clans, not many of them could take out 1,000 intermediate-grade immortal crystals. The ratio of low-grade immortal crystals to mid-grade immortal crystals wasn't 110 or 100, but 10,000. A mid-grade immortal crystal was worth 10,000 low-grade immortal crystals. 1,000 mid-grade immortal crystals were equivalent to 100 million low-grade immortal crystals. This price was already shocking enough. However, the price varied from person to person. Many people felt that it was outrageously expensive, but a chaotic heaven stage expert like Yin Shan felt that it was cheap. Although the Scarlet Gold Saber was only a Grade 4 celestial artifact now, it would not remain a Grade 4 celestial artifact forever. This Scarlet Gold Saber had unlimited room for improvement. Yin Shan was a Grade 7 immortal blacksmith emperor. Among the people present, there was no one who understood smithing better than Yin Shan. Even the current Tang Ao, who had inherited Yun Xiaoyao's craftsmanship, was still far from Yin Shan's level of attainment in craftsmanship. Yin Shan could already tell, just now, that Tang Ao's Crimson Gold Saber used the cold ice purification method. Chapter 24:18. But now, Tang Ao had used some unknown method to remove more than 60% of the impurities in the pure gold sand with the cold ice refining method. Now the pure gold saber had become transparent. Yin Shan had only seen fairy weapons made from 60% purified pure gold sand in the realm of true force, the realm of heaven martial arts. However, that fairy weapon belonged to Tao Master Tianwu of the realm of heaven martial arts, and many craftsmen had died for it. Because this fairy weapon had been refined by using the life of a craftsman to extract the original aura of the divine weapon and purify it with the pure gold sand. As far as Yin Shan knew, 10 fairy weapon emperors of the realm of heaven martial arts had died in order to refine that fairy weapon. 2 innate divine weapons and 7 acquired divine weapons were damaged. Of course, after paying such a huge price, the crimson golden spear that was refined was also extraordinary. The pure gold spear was 90% purified, and it had been refined by the best craftsmen in the realm of heaven martial arts. It was a 9th grade fairy weapon at the peak of the realm of heaven martial arts. It had been nourished by Tao Master Tianwu for many years, so its power must be much greater than ordinary innate divine weapons. Yin Shan estimated that Tao Master Tianwu's heavenly martial spear could rival some superb divine weapons. Of course, all weapon refiners abhorred such a divine weapon. Because Tao Master Tianwu had set this example, many strong craftsmen followed suit. Therefore, the number of craftsmen who had died for a pure gold fairy weapon was a large proportion of all craftsmen in the realm of true force. Later, the Craftsmen's Guild banned this kind of craftsman method. But even now, many people were still using this method to refine pure gold fairy weapons. Yin Shan's visit this time was peaceful and didn't attract any attention because he had come to kill people. Yin Shan thought that someone must have done something in the ruins of immortality if a pure gold fairy weapon of this level had appeared. However, to Yin Shan's surprise, the pure gold fairy weapon seemed to have been refined with the cold ice refining method. Although he didn't know the process, Yin Shan was sure that the pure gold spear in front of him wasn't refined with the original aura of an ordinary craftsman. 1,000 middle-grade fairy crystals. Even though an expert like Yin Shan was here, many people couldn't help but fight for such a treasure. After a short silence, a warrior on the 3rd floor made a bid. This person felt very helpless. Originally, he was determined to obtain this celestial artifact. In the end, Yin Shan appeared out of nowhere. This meant that this celestial artifact most likely had nothing to do with him. Even so, he didn't want to give up the gold spear pure gold sword. Because he cultivated the Tao of the saber, this scarlet gold saber would be of great help to him. With the help of this scarlet gold saber, he would have a 10% chance of reaching the celestial body stage. Half-step chaotic heaven stage and true chaotic heaven stage seemed to be only half a step apart, but in reality, everyone understood that this half-step was like an insurmountable chasm. 1,100 intermediate-grade immortal crystals. Senior brother Yinshan, my master wants this item. At this moment, a boy walked out from the array, diagonally opposite Tang Ao. The boy was about 7 or 8 years old. He had a red mouth, white teeth, and a ruddy complexion. His hair was tied up in a Taoist bun, and he wore a fitting red Taoist robe. Chapter 2419. Tang Ao did not know who this white crane boy was. Tang Ao only knew that this was the first time the boy had bid for an item since he came here. However, judging from the way the crowd looked at the boy, Tang Ao knew that he was no ordinary person. Moreover, when Tang Ao saw the boy, he noticed that even Yinshan had a look of fear in his eyes. Despite his fear, Yinshan did not back down. The gold and crimson saber could be bought by anyone, but not by the white crane boy. There was a martial world around the Langya realm called the North Sea Realm. The realm lord of the North Sea Realm was North Sea Tao Master. Although he was known as a Tao Master, he was only a half-step Tao Master. The North Sea Realm and the Langya realm had been enemies for a long time. The gold and crimson saber was from the ruins of immortality, which belonged to the Langya realm. Therefore, the treasures of the Langya realm could not be taken to the North Sea Realm. The master of the White Crane Boy was the North Sea Realm Lord. In the past, many experts of the Langya realm had been killed by the White Crane Boy in the battles between the Langya realm and the North Sea Realm. Now that the White Crane Boy had appeared, many people were nervous and filled with killing intent. If this was the Langya realm, the White Crane Boy would not be able to enter because of the defense formation. However, this was the ruins of immortality, far away from the defense formation of the Langya realm, so the White Crane Boy could come here. White Crane Boy, how dare you? Even if this is the ruins of immortality, it belongs to the Langya realm. Leave now, or don't blame us for being rude. Just then, a voice came from behind the auction stage. Tang Ao was very familiar with this voice. It was Lu Musheng. Lu Musheng was very depressed. He had finally obtained some vitality soil to nourish the soul cultivation flower, but the White Crane Boy from the North Sea Realm had appeared at the ruins of Immortality Auction. The Langya Realm and the North Sea Realm had been enemies for a long time. Moreover, some important figures from the Chamber of Immortality had been killed by the White Crane Boy. If there were more top experts in the ruins of Immortality Auction, Lu Musheng would not have said anything and would have attacked directly. After Lu Musheng spoke, the rest of the experts on the third floor revealed their auras one after another, vaguely forming an encirclement around White Crane Boy. There was only one gap in the confinement array, which was deliberately left open by everyone. If the White Crane Boy were to escape in this direction, he would have to face Yinshan. The White Crane Boy was infamous, and he himself was a chaotic Heaven Stage powerhouse. Even Yinshan was not a match for the White Crane Boy. Therefore, if they could avoid fighting, there was basically no expert here who was willing to fight. Although the Langya realm had the advantage in numbers, they might not be able to keep their own lives. In previous battles between the Langya realm and the North Sea realm, Boy White Crane usually fought against 2 or even 3 turbid Heaven Stage experts of the Langya realm. Moreover, they were not ordinary turbid Heaven Stage cultivators. They were all top-notch experts of the Langya realm. There's no need for all of this, he said. Although it's presumptuous of me to come here, I'm only here to bid for a few items. I have no intention of harming a single blade of grass or tree in the ruins of immortality. As for what happened earlier, we have different standpoints, so hatred is unavoidable. How about this? Let's finish the auction first. Once the auction is over, no matter what everyone wants, I'll accept it. Although Tang Ao didn't know what the White Crane Boy was hesitating about, Tang Ao knew that it was definitely nothing good. When Tang Ao retreated, a ball of monstrous flaming fist flew towards the White Crane Boy. This blazing fist was naturally Yinshan's attack. Seeing Lu Musheng and Yinshan's attack, The surrounding yin-yang realm experts and a few half-step chaotic heaven realm experts also made their moves. The White Crane Boy's cultivation was too strong. If they couldn't take him down while everyone was working together, the consequences would be unimaginable. After everyone attacked together, the spiritual energy in the entire ruins of immortality raged and various terrifying spells exploded. The grade 7 celestial array in the auction hall quickly collapsed. Chapter 24-21. Before the vines could get close to the child White Crane, they were all severed by the white light. At that moment, Yin Shan's flaming fist approached the child White Crane instantly. However, the child White Crane did not have to give in to Yin Shan's overbearing punch. He raised his right hand and slapped out. Immediately, a terrifying blast of air swept out from the point of contact, and the entire auction hall was instantly reduced to ruins. Many martial artists with weaker cultivations were instantly killed by the terrifying spiritual pressure. Even more warriors were severely injured. At that moment, Tang Ao saw the child White Crane's body shake and immediately disappear on the spot. When he reappeared, the child White Crane had already crushed the throat of an yin-yang realm level 9 warrior. Oh no! Tang Ao was shocked when he saw that. This was because Jin Wanchuan was not far away from the yin-yang realm level 9 warrior. Jin Wanchuan had also participated in the battle just now. Just as this thought flashed through Tang Ao's mind, Jin Wanchuan suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood was mixed with many pieces of internal organs. There was a huge bloody hole in Jin Wanchuan's stomach. This bloody hole had been pierced by the child White Crane's horsetail whisk when it flew past. With such injuries, even Tang Ao would not be able to save him. At the last moment of his life, Jin Wanchuan's eyes revealed a look of exhaustion. Apart from exhaustion, there was also a yearning for life. However, Jin Wanchuan only felt that his consciousness was about to dissipate very soon. It was obvious that he could not survive in such a state. "Run," Jin Wanchuan said calmly as he looked at Jin Shun, who was rushing towards him. "Father!" Jin Shun roared, and the seal on the demon-breaking saber was released. Without any hesitation, Jin Shun swung his saber at the child White Crane. The child White Crane sneered when he saw Jin Shen's saber coming towards him. Then he raised his hand and slapped out. According to the child White Crane's original plan, Jin Shen's saber would immediately be shattered by his slap. After shattering the saber, the child White Crane's palm technique would not reduce, and he would be able to kill Jin Shen easily. However, what the White Crane boy didn't expect was that after he struck out with his palm, Jin Shen's demon-slaying saber actually released a mysterious aura of the Great Path. Under this aura, the immortal essence in the White Crane boy's hand was instantly broken. The moment his immortal essence broke through, child White Crane was alarmed. Although the child White Crane managed to dodge in time, he was still a moment too slow. A rain of blood bloomed on boy White Crane's right shoulder. This was the first time boy White Crane had been injured in the battle. Younger brother Chun, quickly move aside. Tang Ao cried out explosively when he saw that Jin Shun was about to attack. He immediately took out the Origin Sacred Heavenly Bow. At this moment, Jin Shen's second saber slashed towards White Crane Boy. After suffering a huge loss at Jin Shen's hands, White Crane Boy already regarded Jin Shun as a dead man. Now that Jin Shun still dared to come up, the White Crane Boy did not hesitate and directly swept the horsetail whisk in his hand towards Jin Shun. When Jin Shun saw boy White Crane's horsetail whisk flying towards him, he suddenly slashed at the horsetail whisk with his saber. However, the horsetail whisk was strange and unpredictable. Under Jin Shen's attack, it turned into countless thin threads and avoided Jin Shen's saber radiance. Then, without any delay, these thin threads suddenly condensed and turned into long spears that pierced towards Jin Shun. Chapter 24-22. Puchi. Jin Shun spurted out a mouthful of blood. The boundless power within his body seemed to have been sucked dry. The scenery around him quickly blurred. Jin Shin wanted to turn around to take a look, but his vision darkened and he fainted. Seeing a long spear piercing through Jin Shin's heart, Tang Ao thought that Jin Shin was dead for sure. However, when Tang Ao took a closer look, he realized that Jin Shin's vitality had been greatly injured, and he had not died immediately. Furthermore, there were ancient and mysterious runes floating out from Jin Shin's heart. Jin Shin's shattered heart was also rapidly healing. After a while, Jin Shin's wound had already healed to this extent, but he still had not woken up. Many people had seen Jin Shin being severely injured by the White Crane Boy, but they were not in the mood to think about it. Everyone was thinking about how to kill this White Crane Boy. However, it would be wishful thinking for the warriors here to kill the White Crane Boy. Under the White Crane Boy's attacks, warriors from the ruins of immortality and the true martial realm continued to die. However, up until now, the White Crane Boy had only been injured by Jin Shin's sneak attack due to his carelessness. At this moment, the White Crane Boy's figure disappeared again. Seeing the White Crane Boy's figure disappear, Tang Ao had a bad feeling. This White Crane Boy was clearly vengeful. Just now, Tang Ao had used the primordial sacred sky bow to help Jin Shin, and the White Crane Boy had clearly seen it. As Tang Ao's figure retreated, the White Crane Boy's figure instantly appeared in front of Tang Ao. Without any hesitation, Tang Ao subconsciously took out the Shinnong cauldron to block in front of him. Dang! A metal clashing sound was heard, and the Shinnong cauldron was immediately blown back by the White Crane Boy's horsetail whisk. The Shinnong cauldron instantly turned red on Tang Ao's body. The battle's Saint Bone life spirit that Tang Ao had summoned did not even last for a few breaths of time before it was smashed. Then, Tang Ao spurted out a mouthful of blood, and his entire body was blown away. The gap between astral reaching realm and chaotic sky realm was like a natural chasm, immeasurable. Even the White Crane Boy's casual attack was not completely blocked by Tang Ao, who had used all his trump cards. After seeing that his move did not kill Tang Ao, a trace of doubt flashed in the eyes of the White Crane Boy. White Crane Boy's figure flashed again, and he immediately chased after Tang Ao. At this moment, Tang Ao couldn't even stabilize his body, let alone dodge. At this moment, Tang Ao only had two choices. He could either hide in the chaotic hexagram mirror and avoid this deadly attack, or he could crush the space-breaking spell and leave this place. However, under the restraints of the White Crane Boy's aura, it was very difficult for Tang Ao to crush the teleportation Jade Talisman. It was as if what Tang Ao wanted to crush was not a teleportation Jade Talisman, but an indestructible mountain. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in front of Tang Ao. Its speed was even faster than Yin Shan and the others. At first, Tang Ao looked happy. With this kind of speed, the Langya Realm's experts must have arrived. However, when he saw that it was Su Shiro in front of him, Tang Ao's expression changed drastically. He didn't even have time to warn her. The horsetail whisk in the White Crane Boy's hand fiercely smashed on his Sushiro's body. A cracking sound was heard, and the Heavenly Law Talisman's protective light layer was immediately shattered. The remaining power of the White Crane Boy's palm attack landed on Sushiro's body. Sushiro's bones were instantly shattered, and her whole body immediately went limp, barely breathing. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.